Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is today. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us on this early stream today. I hope your week is unfolding beautifully. It's Wednesday, all downhill from here. We got a great stream prepped ahead. So coming up, we've got 3 segments. We've got the Dugan update. Judge Hannah Dugan, Wisconsin, got suspended, and she hired a LeBron James type defense lawyer. So she's gearing up for a defense. We're going to come back and talk about that. We've also got new documents in the Kilmar case and new orders in the Kilmar case. We had a pause on the discovery. The discovery is back on, and so we're going to be waiting to see what comes next on that case. We also got some documents on there out of the Kilmar case where the wife's ex-boyfriend or ex-baby daddy apparently filed a demand to get his kids back, which they say are Kilmar's because he's kind of stepdaddy now. But he tried to get him back, and he was saying that the wife was dating a gang member. Who could that be? We don't know. Of course we know. And then we've got a dissent we're going to read through because an Obama judge got reamed. Amy Berman Jackson. We've talked a lot about her. Terrible judge out of Washington, D.C. She got reamed in a scathing dissent from the Court of Appeals out of the D.C. Circuit. But right now, live, we've got a Trump cabinet meeting that is underway. So we're going to dip in on this, hang out for a minute, see what's going on. They're going around the table, and here is what it sounds like before we jump into the other activity on the day. Here's the latest.
First, when I go to these hospitals, they're actually coming up saying thanks. We're back in where we need to be, and we're seeing a workforce develop. So suicide is going to come down. It's also going to take some transition stuff that your Secretary of Defense has been very helpful on. We got to transfer them out of the military so they come to us better, but we're working on that.
Thank you. Jameson?
Mr. President, it may come as a surprise, but this has been the busiest 100 days in the history of the
In history. This is the biggest deal ever done. If you sold IBM, ExxonMobil, and 5 other companies together, it's peanuts compared to what we're doing. This is the biggest deal ever done financially in the history of the world. And I think we're doing great. You're going to see some big results. Go ahead.
And I'll just say something that Secretary Duffy said in his context, because it's complex, no one has done it. So this is something, a reordering of global trade that hasn't happened since the end of World War II.
Yeah.
And it's long overdue because we've seen manufacturing offshore under the old global trading system, when the net result of the global trading system is that all the manufacturing goes to Asia and other places. That's a system you have to replace. That's what you're doing. They said you wouldn't be able to do global tariffs. We did it. They said everyone would retaliate. No one retaliated outside of China. They said no one would come to negotiate. We're talking to dozens of countries. They said no one would have offers. We have dozens of written offers. We have lots of countries in this week. This is like a break for me to come.
With all the countries that want to negotiate. They all want to negotiate. They want to make a deal.
Don't zoom in on this. This is like a tracker, right? With all these columns of which countries have come in, when we started negotiations, who gave us an offer.
Oh, they're zooming. They're zooming in, all right.
Have deals done. Those are some weeks out, but we're working very quickly on this. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, James. You're going to have a lot of fun for the next 3 weeks.
Working his butt off, baby. Thank you.
Mr. President, the last 4 years, the world experienced a total lack of zero leadership under Biden. And then we've had 100 days of your leadership with respect, with strength, starting with there'll be all hell to pay if you don't let our people go. Dozens, over 40 Americans have come home under your leadership. Far more terrorists are no longer threatening the homeland under your leadership, pulling all of these agencies together, including the evil individual responsible for the Abbey Gate bombing, and to sit with the 13 Gold Star families, and you showing that follow-up and that justice has been incredible. But pulling this great team together, Mr. President, everything from revitalizing shipyards to cyber to space, that takes this entire team working together. It's an honor to serve you in this administration, and I think the world is far better, far safer for it.
Thank you very much. The aggregate is really important. This was a horrible thing that destroyed the image, frankly, of the Biden administration. What happened there was a disgrace. It should have
Yes,
never
it
happened.
was.
And Pam is working very much on
Dead Americans.
prosecuting that person. We have the person, and he'll do well. I have no doubt about it. Thank you very much, Michael. So the CIA, I don't know, Ratcliffe, I don't know if he's going to say anything. He's probably the one person here that's not allowed to talk about the great job he's done.
It's
Go ahead
classified.
anyway.
President, as you know, at your direction, the CIA has deployed our unique covert action authorities in various places and continents to successfully advance your national security and foreign policy priorities, to advance peace, to end wars, to take terrorists off the battlefield, and to keep illicit drugs from coming into this country and harming Americans. Unfortunately, as much as I would love to detail your accomplishments in that regard, we can't do so in front of this crowd.
Classified.
But you and I both know, Mr. President, that you have had a profound positive impact on America's national security posture, and Americans are safer because of your leadership. What I can talk about publicly is, as has been mentioned, the CIA provided the intelligence that led to the apprehension of the Abbey Gate bomber, who is now being prosecuted by our great Attorney General and providing a measure of justice to those 13 families that suffered as a result of that disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal during the last administration. In addition, at your direction, Mr. President, the CIA has negotiated and secured the release of Americans like Mark Fogel and Ksenia Carolina, who have been wrongfully detained, sending the message that you will forget about no Americans that are being held in other places unfairly and unjustly. And finally, Mr. President, the CIA is being restructured at your direction to focus on our core mission and to eliminate the well-documented politicization that has taken place in the intelligence community from bad actors in the past, to focus on our core mission and to make America safe again. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. President.
Good job. You're doing a great job. Thank you very much. Russell?
We're obviously involved in a number of budget bills that are moving, trying to make sure all of your priorities are reflected in the reconciliation, working on our upcoming budget. Wonderful job by the entire cabinet on that front. Details soon on that front. Sending up rescissions bills to Congress for things that Elon has found. But the regulatory aspect is something we don't talk about enough. And right now you've given us a goal of 10 for 1. We are working right now with all of the agencies to rack up how big of a deregulatory agenda that we can have. When you came into office, you basically stopped $200 billion in costs to American families just by stopping the Biden regulatory agenda. That's about $2,000 per family. We think when we're going to hit these 10 for 1 goals that we could be in the neighborhood of about $900 billion in savings to American families that would be substantially bigger than that $2,000 number. And the point that I would make, in addition to just savings cheaper to the American people, there's an aspect of wisdom when you're enforcing these rules that comes into play. And I'm your regulator for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and we found this small mortgage lender in Chicago. His name is Barry Sterner. He had a firm called Townstone, and CFPB had gone after him because he complained about crime in Chicago, literally the same thing that the Democrat mayor had talked about. And they came after him for 7 years on a redlining disparate impact claim and ruined his life. We overturned that. We apologized on your behalf to that individual. And we basically, without having to go through notice and comment, we ended the policy that set that in motion. And so that's happening across these agencies with how they are using their enforcement discretion. And it will only continue based on the stonewall of backing that you've given us to make these hard calls. I don't think they're actually that hard, but no one's done it to this point, and we were able to go forward and do that because of the backing that you've given us.
So maybe the biggest thing we're working on, maybe bigger than tariffs in a certain sense, is we call it the one big beautiful bill. And that's wielding its way right now through the Senate. And John Thune has been actually amazing. And the speaker has been so great, Congress. Mike Johnson has been Really, two guys that, they get along great, and it's just been a beautiful, unified attack, really, because we have to attack because the Democrats are trying to stop it at every turn.
That's great.
It would mean a 58% tax hike if they were successful, and lots of other bad things beyond the tax hike. But with us, it'll be the biggest tax cut in American history. How are we doing with the bill?
We're doing great. We're day in, day out, hour by hour negotiations to make sure your stuff is in there, and to make sure we have the border resources, the defense resources, and to save the American people some tax money and make sure all those tax cuts that you ran on are in there that help get people back into the workforce. And I think we're making a ton of progress.
I think we're doing well. Like I said, the biggest tax cut in the history of our country. And it would be the biggest tax increase if the Democrats are successful. They're the only people I've ever seen running for office where they want to increase taxes, but this would be a 58, maybe a 60% tax increase, unsustainable for the American people.
Can't have it.
Thank you very much. Great job. Susie, the most powerful woman in the world.
What's up, Susie Wiles?
I agree with that. I agree.
Ice Queen.
So you can hear from these amazing people. Congratulations to everyone on 100 days. That's been it's unparalleled in my memory and best I can tell ever. But it hasn't been busy for busy's sake. The president's promises made to the American people have been kept time and time and time again. You all have been out there spreading the word with community groups and states and media. It hasn't gone unnoticed, and let's work hard to the next 100 and have equally as much success then. Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Susie.
doing a great job, Susie. I think everybody agrees.
Ice Maiden, right? Ice, not Ice Queen, Ice Maiden. Susie Wiles, Chief of Staff. Yeah.
Disagrees, please. Please raise your hand if you have the courage to do so. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Thank you. And you made it very clear that you wanted to put America first. And also from day one, you wanted to make housing affordable again, because we do have a housing affordability crisis in our country. And so at HUD, we've been cutting all the red tape and bureaucracy as it pertains to housing affordability and unleashing creativity of our builders and developers around our country and restoring local control. We took down the affirmatively furthering fair housing rule, as you know, which was a zoning tax from Washington. So no longer will Washington be picking winners and losers, but localities and elected officials in different states and cities will have that flexibility. Also, you alluded to securing the border, and such a great job has been done with all of our partners at the table. And at HUD, we want to make sure that the resources that we have now, which is American taxpayer dollars, in the Biden administration, they prioritize illegal aliens
Yes, they
over
did.
the American people. And so we signed an MOU with Secretary Noem at DHS to make sure that HUD-funded housing only goes to American citizens and no longer will it go to illegal aliens coming across our border. We have about 9 million people living in subsidized housing in our country. 59% of illegal alien families use some sort of welfare program, costing us $42 billion a year. And so we have prioritized American and American people only to live in HUD-funded housing. And also to make housing affordable, we also signed a partnership with Secretary Burgum at DOI to use underutilized federal lands, as you campaigned on and promised, to identify those lands to build affordable housing in our country so that people can realize the American dream. We also restored biological truth, as you did in sports.
Nice.
We have the equal access rule at HUD, which we took that rule down to ensure that at women shelters, that those that enter those shelters would be of the same sex, and that we will protect the ladies of our country. No longer will those that identify as women but are not women be able to enter our shelter, so that we can protect the ladies that we serve. Along with our DOGE task force, we identified over $2 billion in savings. At HUD, $260 million at HUD was just in contracts, $4 million with DEI. And so we took those contracts down and de-obligated and sent back $1.9 billion back to the Treasury for the American people. Again, we want to be good stewards over the American taxpayer dollars. And so, Mr. President, thank you for your leadership in this. And we have a tremendous team at HUD, and I'm so grateful to be part of this team around this table to take care of the American people. And I consider it a great honor and humble to do so.
Good job.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm not sure if anyone's heard, but the price of eggs is down. It's news. I know it's news. Listen, sir, today on, as we celebrate the 100th day, I think that it's just such a joy and an honor to continue to do this work. So thank you for that. We have been obviously very focused on the cost of groceries, specifically eggs led the way, as you have so eloquently discussed over the last few months. And we're holding tight on a very significant decrease, which is great. And investing where we need to there. As I mentioned before the press came in, we have had a massive issue with Mexico on water, getting water to our farmers along the border for decades. When I worked in Texas 25 years ago, we were fighting with the Mexican government over the water then.
Huge issue down
You
here.
got involved about 2 weeks ago. That evening, I started conversations, and as of just a few days ago, thanks to Secretary Rubio's great deputy secretary and I have been negotiating, and we hit the best deal, I believe, in history on behalf of our farmers, and thanks to your leadership and your strength on that. And that's a really big deal long term for those farmers in the southern part of the country. On the energy side, I know we've got Secretary Burgum and his partner, Secretary Wright, but we often forget that agriculture has a major piece of the energy dominance agenda, not just timber, not just minerals, but biofuels. So we continue to support that great leadership coming from those agencies and doing hopefully our part as well. And they've been incredible in that. Our farmers have been hurting. Under the Joe Biden administration, there was a 30% increase in the cost of input, so the cost of doing business for these farmers over those 4 years. When we left the White House the first time 4 years ago, we had a $0 trade deficit with our agriculture products, $50 billion, because they just didn't make an effort. And so obviously that's $50 billion less dollars at a time of very thin profitability for our agriculture community. So the Congress passed because the last administration didn't get a farm bill done either, the farmers were hurting there. So Congress stepped in. I say all that and basically said $10 billion to move out. USDA, fastest in history, that money went out to those farmers that couldn't make plant their crops. And so I'm really proud of that. And you'll hear a lot of that from the farmers today, that this USDA is moving more quickly than any ever before. And we're not organizing money based on the color of skin and other ways, which was how the last administration was moving out. We have canceled $6 billion in contracts thanks to our great friend Elon Musk and his Doge team. A lot of those were DEI, gender, studying transgender mice. Who knew the racism in pest management? We've canceled all of it. We're going through a major restructuring.
Racist
USDA
butts?
is one of the biggest agencies. It's sort of a catch-all. And we're really, really downsizing and aligning around putting farmers first, which is really, really important. A big part of USDA is food stamps. It is perhaps one of the largest, if not the largest, welfare program, and it's a supplemental nutrition program. Secretary Kennedy and I have been working very closely. We were in Texas yesterday talking about nutrition and agriculture. You can't make America healthy again without your farmers and your ranchers as your partner. So ensuring that our food stamp program and those at the bottom end of the socioeconomic ladder really have access to nutritious foods as we're facing an obesity crisis and a chronic disease crisis, which I'm sure Secretary Kennedy will touch on. And the final thing I'll say is this morning, Secretary Noem and I together, and I brought a picture because I think this is important and it goes to why we're here. This is a South Dakota ranching family named the Mods.
Oh.
They are a fifth generation ranching family. Charles Mod, in his 30s, bought the ranch from his granddad, I'm going to show the press, when he was 17 years old. Those beautiful children, Lyle and Kennedy, his wife Heather. Under the Biden administration, they had, of their several hundred-acre operation, they used about 20 acres and had a fence that had been there since 1910 when their family took over the ranching operation. There had never been really any problem that had been brought to their attention. Perhaps there was a minor dispute over, again, 20 acres. This family was indicted, prosecuted, threatened with jail time, told to find guardians for their children over a fence line dispute that the Biden DOJ pushed forward. So this morning, on the steps of the U.S. Department of Agriculture with Secretary Noem, who was their governor, as the governor of South Dakota, which is where these great people are from, all charges, criminal charges, were dropped, and really appreciate the Department of Justice. It was a really big day as we sent a signal that the over-criminalization and using government, and you know this better than anyone because you were in the crosshairs for so long, that those days are over and the regulation through prosecution is no more. So this family is one of many that we'll now be talking to ensure that never happens again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Please, Scott.
Sir, it's been a momentous 100 days with you at the helm, and I view this 100 days as setting the table for peace deals, trade deals, tax deals. So the next 100 days will be harvesting. You've created negotiating leverage and leadership that are going to yield remarkable results. Energy costs have plummeted. Mortgage rates are down, food costs are moving lower, and American families are finding their financial footing again. I had a group in today. America, under your leadership, is on the verge of becoming an AI superpower, that our economy had become barbelled. We had high tech and finance on one side, natural resources led by energy, which the previous administration tried to kill on the other. And you're filling in between with precision manufacturing that we're going to be bringing back through good trade policies, good tax policies. Under the DOGE at Treasury and the IRS, cost, tech support, and efficiency have increased. We have the IRS revenues are up, and thanks to the young man sent over by DOGE, the IT update that began in 1990, which was begun before he was born, is going to be finished during your term. So trade, you couldn't make it up. Trade, taxes, and deregulation. The one big beautiful bill under your leadership. Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune have done a great job, but they have you as a closer on many of their members. And I'll just close by saying economic security is national security. National security is economic security, and it's never been better. We're rebuilding it. And as I said last week at the IMF and World Bank conferences, America first does not mean America alone. Under President Trump, it means leadership.
Man. Well said.
Thank you. Are you busy enough? He's doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, thank you, and thanks to the cabinet. So at the risk of insulting everybody else at the table, I believe that I'm the youngest member sitting at the table. And, it occurred to me that from the time that I was born to the time that Donald J. Trump was inaugurated just a few months ago, we went from, again, 40 years, we went from the world's manufacturing superpower to one in which we depend on the People's Republic of China to make the things that we need. We went from the proudest military in the world to one in which we failed to meet our recruiting goals. And we went from one in which bipartisan border policy was the consensus of both Democrats and Republicans to one in which we allowed 20 million people to run roughshod illegally over the countryside, causing crime, causing a stress in the welfare system. And again, that happened over the lifetime of the youngest member of the cabinet. And what has happened in 100 days is that we've started to reverse every single one of those negative trends. And I think what it shows to me is that the president, and you sit in the Oval Office and you see these portraits of presidents past. And let's be honest, most of them have been placeholders. They've been people who have allowed their staff to sign executive orders with an auto pen instead of men of action. And the reason the media attacks this administration as chaotic is because the president is solving the problems the American people set about to solve. He's actually doing the things that he promised that he would do. And Mr. President, it's been an honor to be part of it for the past 100 days. And let me just make one other observation because it's interesting. I've seen the data, I've monitored it, I've looked at it, but the most underreported fact of the first 100 days is that we came in with a massive recruitment shortfall. And in 100 days of Secretary Hegseth and President Trump's leadership, we now have people breaking down the doors to join our military. To the media assembled here, it's a really interesting question. Why has that happened? Completely aside from the fact that I think it's a good thing or I think that President Trump deserves political credit for it, why did we go from a military where people didn't want to serve to now all of a sudden they do want to serve? That's a story you guys should cover. But compared to that, how much time have you instead focused on the fact that we deported an MS-13 gang member with a valid deportation order? And why is it that the press is so focused on the fake BS rather than what's really going on in the country? I think that what we've shown, sir, is that you can do a lot. You can do a lot in 100 days, but you've also unfortunately revealed that too much of the American media hasn't learned the lessons of the past 40 years. Thank you, sir.
JD, well done.
Pam?
President, your first 100 days has far exceeded that of any other presidency in this country, ever. Never seen anything like it. Thank you. Your directive to me was very simple: make America safe. And despite that, we've still been defending over 200 civil lawsuits filed against you. On top of everything else, I think I'm representing every one of you in this room. In some capacity.
True.
I know you will not be arrested by the U.S. Marshals. Over 200 lawsuits, over 50 injunctions, and now we've got multiple cases in front of the Supreme Court, and we will succeed, and we are doing great in front of the Supreme Court, President, and we'll continue on with that. I was at DEA yesterday, and they said to me, you, Donald Trump, have taken the handcuffs off of DEA agents. And as a result of, since you have been in office, President Trump, your DOJ agencies have seized more than 22 million fentanyl pills, 3,400 kilos of fentanyl since you've been your last 100 days, which saved, are you ready for this, media? 258 million lives.
Whoa.
Kids are dying every day because they're taking this junk laced with something else. They don't know what they're taking. They think they're buying a Tylenol or an Adderall and a Xanax, and it's laced with fentanyl, and they're dropping dead. And no longer because of you, what you've done. ATF, since you've been in office, President, along with DOJ agencies, seized 14,500 guns off the streets. Why aren't people reporting that? 651,000 rounds of ammo. That's up 151% from 2024. That's keeping America safe. We've rescinded death penalty. We are now seeking the death penalty on cases. I'm signing death warrants. We are going after terrorism. We are going after arsonists. Whether you're burning Teslas, we've arrested 9 people so far in 7 jurisdictions, no negotiations, 20 years in prison, or you're burning down the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania. We will be there to protect you. And I've been talking to Governor Shapiro, and he greatly appreciated you reaching out as well. ISIS terrorist, we got one in New York, right around the corner. We got an ISIS terrorist in New York. We have an October 7th task force. We just broke up a huge human trafficking ring by the Sinaloa cartel, 1,000 pounds of methamphetamine on our streets, ton of fentanyl, 20,000 Molly pills. Those are the drug of choice among at clubs and bars for young kids. They were fake, but you know what they had in them? Fentanyl. That's 20,000 lives saved because of you right there. We brought back 29 cartel members from Mexico at your direction, and one killed the Kiki Camareno, a DEA agent in 1985. And many of us got to talk to his widow and his son, who is now a judge. And they started crying. They have tried to get that guy back forever. And thanks to so many of you in this room working together, they have justice. They were crying on the phone because of what you did, President Trump. Thank you. We're going after anti-Semitism. We're unleashing everything you told us. No more DEI, no more weaponization We have rescinded, as I said, 200 policies, and I could go on all day long, but we are doing everything in our power to keep America safe at your direction.
Thank you.
Thank you, President.
You're really doing a great job. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go.
Nice to see you, Mr. President. Well, first of all, I think what you've heard amongst this team is the leadership, because it's given us the latitude really to collaborate amongst each other, not only in this room, as Jameson mentioned, we kind of get a break for a couple of hours here, but we stay in contact actually every other day that we're working for you. And I think what that says is I was speaking to, for instance, the Farm Bureau of Texas yesterday. I'm not the Ag Secretary, but it matters to the workforce. I'm working with the other secretaries, Letnick and McMahon, on education and the workforce investments that you've asked me to do. Because as you've come in and negotiated these great repatriation of these companies and the investments, we're going to need that workforce to build back this economy. And I couldn't see that more as I've kicked off my 50-state tour. We've been in 5 states so far. We'll finish all 50 states by the end of the year. And what we're talking to is the American workforce and these companies about what the market demand is. That's the difference, that we finally have made that connection. What do they need? How quick do they need it? And how fast can I get these either apprenticeships toward that million that we've put that lofty goal? We've already added 80,000 new apprenticeships already just since January. So at the Department of Labor, that tour is kicked off, and I couldn't be more honored to be on the ground and see my colleagues that we're passing in the skies, but we're on the ground together because we're all collaborating together. One of the things that we're talking about, illegal immigration, I have put states on notice. I warned all 50 governors that if they continue to reward illegal immigration by treating unemployment benefits as a handout, they're going to lose their federal funding as well.
Ooh.
We can no longer continue to give
do it.
unemployment insurance to illegal immigrants. And so I wrote those governors, and I sent out that letter last week. We also eliminated discriminatory DEI offices within the department, specifically the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs. Most of our federal contracts were really just to focus on DEI enforcement. We were really punishing a lot of these companies. If they weren't complying, they weren't going to have a federal contract.
What's that tattoo say there on her
that
hand?
program completely. $4.4 billion in unspent COVID funds came back to the Treasury from the CARES
Make
Act.
America great again?
Billions were collecting thus in these coffers, in the state coffers. We've asked for that money back to return to the Department of Treasury. We saved $250 million by canceling America Last, is what I call it, foreign handouts, including funding for things like transparency and accountability for Uzbekistan cotton industry. It doesn't make sense that we're funding, these foreign, and thank you to DOJ and to the government efficiency, what we have found with the fraud that we're seeing.
I mean, some of these things are so ridiculous, you can't believe it.
No, I write them down and I read them more than once. Like this county. Yeah, it doesn't
It
make
sounds like a
sense.
comedy sketch.
That's right. And so again, with the executive order, preparing Americans for high-paying skilled trade jobs of the future, that's our goal. The trades is where we're being focused, but all companies, and we want to make sure we're on hand for that. And, what I want to say is thank you to government efficiency, because you asked us, when this transitions out, will our departments and our agencies continue that government efficiency? And I think that we surpassed that in the Department of Labor. Out of our 14,000 federal employees, 3,000 have taken the DRP, and we offered it again. So over 21% have taken that offer. And we'll keep our critical workforce, MSHA, OSHA, and wage and hour, and make sure our workers stay safe. So with your leadership, Mr. President, I couldn't be more honored to serve. I know we were probably the last to know each other, but we're getting to know each other well. And the team that you have assembled is really an honor to serve with. So thank you, Mr. President.
You're doing great. Thank you very much. Chris, please.
Mr. President, you ran on unleashing American energy, and 100 days have shown the tremendous impacts that can arise from the unleashing you have enabled. I'll hit a few highlights. Number one, oil, gasoline, and diesel prices are the lowest they've been in years. How does that happen in 100 days? That's a messaging. Your message that we're pro-energy. We're not against energy, we're for it. That sends a message to the marketplace that supply is easier to grow now and supply will be coming. And that's already led to tremendous savings for American consumers across the country. And we need not only more affordable energy, but we need a lot more energy. Want to highlight, I think a couple of us have touched on, is AI. This is a new emerging critical industry that's very energy intensive. It is not acceptable for the United States to not be the leader in AI. We must win the AI race and lead in that, and that's going to take a lot more energy. If you had not won election, we would not have won the AI race. Full stop. Energy would not have been there to enable us to win. Reshoring of manufacturing. These trillions of dollars you let off with, it's going to come back to our country to make chips, to make steel, to make automobiles, to make artificial intelligence, to make all of these industries we've outsourced. That's only going to be possible with way more American energy. But we have that energy. We have those resources. We have those businesses. We have those capitalists. We just need to stop standing in the way of them and follow the lead you've set, which is to enable them, not to subsidize them, not to help them, to enable them to invest American money and create American jobs here. Regarding our balance of trade, the second largest export of the United States is liquefied natural gas. Second fastest. In the next few years, it'll be our largest export in our country. But yet, 18 months ago, the Biden administration had said, we're going to stop issuing permits for new LNG export terminals. That's just nuts. That's a great competitive advantage we have, huge balance of trade driver, a huge industry just coiled and ready to go. I just came back from Poland last night. They are thrilled that America's back in business again and that the rest of Europe can get off of Russian energy and can enable their own economic growth with secure, reliable, affordable energy from the United States. Also witnessed the signing ceremony for a deal between two large American businesses to build a huge nuclear power plant in northeastern Poland. The first of this design built in Europe. It'll be the first of many. I spoke to many other nations over there. They want to buy more American gas. They want to get American technology. They want to have a partnership with us. And they shared the message I delivered to Europe in my keynote remarks is that unleashing energy is the way you make your society safer, more prosperous, more free, and that these sort of over-the-top climate alarmism doesn't do anything to help the environment of our world, but it does impoverish people, it does reduce the security of your nation, and it makes you weaker. I think that's a constant message many of us around this table have brought to Europe. We want our friends in Europe standing up again and leaning in. A lot great is happening under your leadership. We're unleashing consumer products that Americans wanted to buy that Biden was making illegal. I'll be in Georgia on Friday at Renai's manufacturing plant. Tankless natural gas water heaters. Incredibly popular product. They almost became illegal. The return of common sense is incredibly welcome across this country, across the world. And back to Elon, that extra thing, we're going to deliver all of this with less people, less money, less burden on the U.S. taxpayers. Not smaller departments and smaller services, better, more thoughtful services done more efficiently and smarter. The way you'd have to run a business. We've got to get our fiscal house in order, and you and the people around this table are making it happen. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you very much. Please.
Yes, Mr. President, you are 100% correct. The border is 99.99% safe, under control. You have
Better than
completely
the jab,
reversed the
baby.
entire situation. In fact, the day before yesterday, I was down in El Paso, and those Border Patrol agents are so impacted by how you've changed things in a year. They have put up huge pictures that say, under the Biden administration, the
advice.
mobs of people that were pushing through razor wire and trampling children and the chaos and the violence that was happening at that same location, they have a picture there that says, this is what the Biden administration looks like, and this is what the Trump administration looks like. It's peaceful. People who do business between Mexico and America are coming through. They're doing it legally. They're following the law, and it's all because of what you've done and what you've empowered them to do. The recruitment for Border Patrol is through the roof. For ICE agents, they want to be a part of ICE because they recognize they actually get to do their job. I have the Coast Guard too. Coast Guard recruitment is up over 20% just in the last 60 days. Everybody wants to be a part of what the heritage is of this country. We've repositioned the entire Coast Guard fleet to focus on border and drug interdiction. As we've secured the border, the cartels have gone to the water and are going out in maritime waters to move their drugs into this country. The Coast Guard just in the last 2 months has taken into custody over 126 tons of cocaine, millions of doses of fentanyl. It's just amazing. And the aliens that they are
deporting is incredible too. We've been working with all of them. The one thing that I want to point out is the fake news has been saying that Biden deported more people than you. And it's an absolute lie. And they're letting the Biden administration get away with manipulating and cooking the books. What they're counting for the Biden administration is every single person that came to that border that they processed and let into this country. They're allowing Biden to say that was a deportation just by processing somebody and letting them come into the country. It's absolutely false. It's not true at all. You have deported over 250 known terrorists. You've deported thousands of foreign terrorist organization members and gang members, hundreds of thousands of people that were in this country illegally. We've collected $30 billion worth of tariffs through CBP, and we've also collected millions and millions, hundreds of millions of fines and penalties from people that have overstayed here in this country. So I just want to thank you. You've been a game changer. I want to thank Pete for his leadership at DOD and what they've done. I want to thank Marco for his diplomacy and getting us travel documents into these countries. Mexico has finally come to the table and now is going to take a lot more people that we're able to send back to that country. And the president of Mexico told me, sir, she turned around over 500,000 people in Mexico before they ever reached our border. We should be counting those as deportations because they never even made it to the border because she turned them around because you forced her to. So those are all people that never even came here because they got the message because you were so aggressive. So thank you for what you're doing. And every day we get to get up and do jobs that matter. And we appreciate that. Oh, yeah. Tom's a great messenger for us.
Shout out to Tom Holman.
Yeah, he's hardcore.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, he is.
No question about it. Kelly?
Mr. President, it's such an honor to serve in this administration, and on behalf of Main Street America, for our 34 million small businesses that make up 99% of all businesses in this great nation, I have to tell you, under your leadership, Main Street is open for business again. They're thriving and they're investing. And the data that we have at the Small Business Administration, the loans that we're putting out, a record 26,000 loans in your first 100 days means that 2,000 small businesses each week are receiving that funding, that investment in the future. Small businesses create 2 out of every 3 new jobs in this country, and we've already seen under your leadership the jobs economy is back, manufacturing jobs are back. We've seen a 38% increase in manufacturing loans. We put out 1,500 manufacturing loans in your first 100 days. We saw startups increase by 54%. And we saw businesses under 5 people increase by 95%. So your leadership on the economy matters to every region of this great nation. I'll tell you on the manufacturing front, I'm out on a national manufacturing tour. We've met with 250 manufacturers, and as I walk through the factory floors, they all ask me to thank you for fighting for their jobs, for these industries, and for the people who are creating things from pharmaceuticals to aerospace, to food and all these essentials. This nation needs to be independent and strong. And to that end, I'm working with Congress. We'll be announcing tomorrow an upsizing of our manufacturing loans to make sure that that economic engine, because 98% of all manufacturers are small businesses. It's incredible to walk through these factories that are really creating what you had in your first administration, the blue collar boom. It's now a new collar boom because it's the intersection of technology and manufacturing and what they can create for our war fighters, for our aerospace, for pharmaceuticals with less than 300 to 500 employees, sometimes 100 employees. I was at a factory in Georgia on Monday that is creating machines to help with the Iron Dome in Israel, less than 50 employees. This is the engine of our economy. It's the heartbeat of our communities. It's the small businesses that helped elect you because they needed your economic agenda. So thank you, Mr. President. It's such an honor, and congratulations on an epic 100 days. I do have to thank Elon. I do want to note we just cut $3 billion in contracts because of Doge's work. That's $3 billion that hardworking families that won't have to work until April 15th to pay for the waste, fraud, and abuse that we continue to find in this government on behalf of taxpayers. So again, thank you, Elon.
Thank you. Great job, Kelly. Thank you very much.
Elon double hat.
I love the double hat, but
Whoa.
he's the only one that can do that. Get away with it.
Well, Mr. President, they say I wear a lot of hats. It's true. Even my hat has a hat. The American people voted for secure borders, safe cities, and sensible spending.
Yes.
And that's what they've got. A tremendous amount has been accomplished in the first 100 days. As everyone has said, it's more than has been accomplished in any administration before, ever, period. This portends very well for what will happen for the rest of the administration. I think this could be the greatest administration since the founding of the country.
Well, we all want to thank you for your help. You really have sacrificed a lot, been treated very unfairly.
Well, they do like to rent my cars, which is not great,
But you have been treated unfairly, but the vast majority of people in this country really respect and appreciate you, and this whole room can say that very strongly. You've really been a tremendous help. You opened up a lot of eyes as to what could be done, and we just want to thank you very much. And you're invited to stay as long as you want. At some point, I guess he wants to get back home to his car. You've done an incredible job. $150 billion. Think of that.
Yeah. 160 now.
Yeah, 160. They said, oh, it could have been more. And a lot of stuff is being worked on. That number could be doubled and even tripled. A lot of things are being worked on that we don't count yet because it's not quite there. But you've done a fantastic job, and we appreciate it very much. Thank
you. It's also an honor to work with your incredible cabinet. I just like to say thank you, everyone. It's great to work with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Kelsey?
Mr. President, congratulations on this truly historic first 100 days of your administration. Really only made possible by your focused leadership on delivering the mandate the American people gave you. You've empowered all of us to deliver that mandate. And I'm grateful to have the privilege of leading the intelligence community towards ending the weaponization, politicization of the intelligence community that's gone on for far too long. And building out what is truly a lean and agile and effective intelligence community that is helping you deliver that promise to the American people of safety, security, and freedom. So, Mr. President, I'd like to highlight just 3 of the areas where we are helping to support your leadership and your work in making America safe again and bringing about these changes. First of all, because of your designation of cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, I took immediate action with our National Counterterrorism Center to prioritize their focus on those terrorists and gang members who are trying to enter our country through legal or illegal means, and to seek out those who already are here in our country because of the Biden administration's 4 years of open borders. We've been working very closely with your great Attorney General's team at the DEA to get these known cartels into our systems, to be able to stop them at the border, and turning over names to Department of Homeland Security and the FBI to be able to find those who are already here in our country. Just the other day, we found 700 alien terrorists who have ties to MS-13, Tren de Aragua, and the Sinaloa cartel. Just yesterday, our NCTC identified almost 600 individuals with ties to other terrorists who came through our borders illegally, claimed asylum, and under the Biden administration were paroled here within our borders.
Door-dashed into our country.
Secondly, Mr. President, like too many organizations in the federal government, the ODNI has become very bloated with too much waste and abuse going on within the organization. We've done a few immediate steps. We are doing more. The ODNI is 25% smaller and more lean today than it was when I walked in the door and when you took office. Secondly, we have just this morning actually shut down a human capital office. As soon as you issued the executive order to stop all DEI activities, we did that, shut down the DEI office. We discovered this human capital office that was essentially a slush fund for DEI initiatives, hidden under the guise of human capital, that closed down this morning, saving taxpayers $150 million. We'll soon be announcing an additional $2.6 billion in savings for other programs and contracts that do nothing to ensure our national security interests. And lastly, we're working every day to hold the deep state accountable, to end the politicization, weaponization of the intelligence community. This past week, I sent 3 criminal referrals for illegal and unauthorized leaks to the media of classified intelligence for prosecution. We have 11 more that are under investigation. We've revoked at your direction 67 security clearances, and we continue the work of declassifying documents as we have already around JFK assassination. We have more coming for the assassination of Bobby's father, Senator Kennedy, and MLK assassination. And we continue our extensive investigations around exposing the very serious issues we have related to election integrity, illegal abuses of FISA,
Good.
Crossfire Hurricane, and others. Mr. President, under your leadership, we are working every day to bring about that transparency and accountability that the American people deserve. So thank you for the opportunity.
Great job. Thank you very much. Lee?
Mr. President, at the Biden EPA, the Green New Deal was raging. At the Biden EPA, we saw billions of tax dollars burning. At the Biden EPA, we saw industries suffocating. But at the Trump EPA, the Green New Deal is dead. At the Trump EPA, we know that we can both protect the environment and grow the economy. I have 13 pages of accomplishments from our first 100 days in here, and in it, part of it is 100 environmental accomplishments at the Trump EPA. You don't have to take my word for it. We released it to the media this morning. Every single day that President Trump is in this office, there will be a major environmental accomplishment every single day of the Trump administration. At the Trump EPA, we're also launching what is the largest deregulatory action in the history of the country. We're going to be giving our director of the OMB a whole lot of work because we inherited a big mess from the Biden EPA. And working with Elon and Doge, I've canceled now $22 billion worth of grants. Now today is a special day for many reasons. The biggest reason why we're here is that this is the 100th day of the most consequential, historic first 100 days in the history of this country. Today, while we're here, the House of Representatives is voting on Congressional Review Act bills, considering the EPA waivers that were given to California's tailpipe emissions, where California set their own standards. But there should be one national standard, and right now, Congress on the House side is going to be voting on that today. On a personal note, while this is a bit outside of the EPA jurisdiction, today is my last day serving in the United States Army. And I first signed up towards the end of the 90s. And I've had a chance to see a lot of national security teams over the course of the last 27 years. There has never been a national security team ever assembled that had the backs of our warriors like this national security team right now. And we have never had a president so deeply committed towards ending foreign wars instead of starting new ones. There's a reason, Mr. Vice President, why everyone is racing to join our Department of Defense. We have a Secretary of Defense who, with all due respect to our great president, would probably rather be swimming with Navy SEALs right now, be running somewhere in the Middle East with our service members. And from our Secretary of Defense to our Secretary of State, our Vice President, and more. I just want to say thank you as a veteran of our military for assembling what is the greatest national security team that I have ever seen in my 27 years associated with the United States Army.
Has Pete signed off on this retirement leave? Is that...
Welcome to the end. Maybe.
Pete says maybe.
Thank you for your service, Lee.
Yeah, thank you. You're doing a fantastic job. I appreciate it very much. So,
Well, Mr. President, I don't think I have ever worked so hard to try to fire myself. We're certainly making great strides in that. We've reduced the folks over at the Department of Education by about 50% now through our RIF program. And so we've closed a lot of the district offices, consolidating, so there are a lot fewer people working a lot more efficiently in the Department of Education. The commissioners of education in every state, and was at a meeting with them not too long ago for not only our states, but our territories. They are thrilled with the opportunity now to be able to have more control over the education in their states, to get rid of a lot of the red tape and regulation that's kept them from doing what they're doing. So we're seeing, I think, great improvements. We'll see test scores. I believe it'll take a bit for them to be able to go up, but I think now that they're going to have the opportunity to put in their own programs, we'll see that grow. At the same time, we've been focused on higher education for our universities. We've returned proper enforcement of Title IX protections to schools. We have stopped funding to Columbia, for instance, and some other schools for not only Title IX, but Title VI infractions. And those are moving along. I think we've brought people to the table. They know that you're serious. You meant what you said. They're going to make changes. They're making their campuses safer again. Anti-Semitism was just out of control in many of our universities. And so some tried to, in fact, Harvard is sued and they're saying that it's, First Amendment infraction. No, this is civil rights, safety on our campuses for our young students, who are there. And with Pam's help and the task force that we formed with HHS, with GSA, with other agencies, we're going to make sure that our campuses are safe. And so there's a lot of good work going on. I think one of the biggest things, you'll be very happy to hear this, Mr. Vogt, that we are putting back into place collecting on our student loans that have been delinquent since March of 2020. There's been no effort to recollect on those loans. So as of May 5th, the letter goes out that the loan recollection is beginning again. So for those people who have borrowed money and who've not been paid, that's just not to be punitive. There are many ways that they can go online to understand how they can get back into the right payment structure, because when they're in default, they can't buy a house, they can't buy a car because their credit scores are down. So it's helpful to them as well as to get this money back into the country. I mean, $60 billion of increased student loan debt since 2020. And in total, we've got almost $1.7 trillion in student debt. So we're gonna start getting it back. And Scott, his team have been incredibly helpful. We appreciate that so very, very much. And so a lot's going on in the department. And what I would really like, as I'm firing myself, I'd like for you to be known as the education president, because of the best in practice systems that we want to put in every state to incorporate AI, so that we are training these new entrepreneurs and business leaders in our country. We can't do it with the infrastructure we have in place today. So you have to be working on that at the same time. So we're going to be doing that. So thank you for your charge to elevate education so that we are providing for every student access to excellent education. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Linda. And what's going on with Harvard and some of these colleges that are taking vast amounts of money, who also have vast amounts? They've got $52 billion and really scamming the public and hiring people like de Blasio and Lori Lightfoot, who are certainly two of the worst mayors in the history of our country, paying them a fortune of salary and having them teach our children how to manage cities and how to manage government. What's the word as of this morning on, let's say, Harvard?
Well, we're negotiating with them. When we went back to them to say we welcome them back to the negotiating table, their response was a lawsuit. So Pam and her team are helping work with that. And I am, enjoying the fact not only am I firing myself, but I'm now being sued fairly regularly by different departments of education. But we're staying tough with them. The other thing that we're looking at also are the 117 violations of these big universities like Harvard and others who are not reporting, as they're required to do by the law, foreign money that comes in and how much that is and where it comes from. And so that is
And students.
Yeah, and it's very
A lot of foreign
serious.
money in those schools.
Yeah, sir,
exactly.
we pulled back their grants because Harvard isn't responding to us, criminal activity by their students. And until they give us that list, they're not getting any more grants from Homeland
Good.
Security.
I think we should pull it back.
We did.
The students they have, the professors they have.
Why are they getting
the
grants?
attitude they have is not American, and I think you should, a grant is a grant. We don't have to give grants.
Totally.
Right.
So we'll pull back the grant. All right.
Yeah. Why are they getting them anyways?
Thank you very much, Lee.
They got
Mr.
$50 billion in
Thank you
endowment.
for your extraordinary leadership over the past 100 days. We are already making America healthy again. We announced last week the ban on the 9 petroleum-based synthetic dyes, food dyes.
Red.
Within 2 years, within 2 months, we're going to ban the worst 2 of them. I am working with Secretary Rollins on dietary guidelines, the dietary guidelines that the President Biden's administration gave us, 453 pages. They're basically unreadable. And they are the product of the same kind of politicized science that drove Fruit Loops to the top of the food pyramid. And we're going to do real science, gold standard science. We're going to develop within, we have till December to do it, but we are working very, very fast together. We're going to get it done by the end of the summer in time to drive change, major dramatic changes in the school food, school lunch programs over the next school year. I'm working also with Secretary Rollins on the SNAP program and to get sodas and candy off of the food stamp program. 10% of food stamps go to SNAP. And I want to thank you for your courage. You are a business-friendly president, probably the most business-friendly in our history, but you're also willing to stand up to very, very powerful businesses, and you've shown that again and again. Secretary Rollins had the soda industry come and knock on her door very much, very loudly, and they said to her, well, the SNAP program is not supposed to be about nutrition. She pointed out to them that there is no nutrition in a soda. And they said, well, it's not supposed to be about nutrition. And she said to them, the name of the program is supplemental nutrition. It is about nutrition. And we should, we have 38% of our kids are diabetic or pre-diabetic, and we are paying at both ends. We're paying for the food-like substances that make them diabetic, and then we're being bankrupt. We're spending $1 trillion a year on metabolic dysfunction. It's existential and it's not sustainable. We have, I visited Arizona, West Virginia, Utah, and Indiana in the last 2 weeks, who have all applied for SNAP waivers. We're encouraging, thanks to Brooke Rollins' leadership, all of the states to apply for those waivers. I also visited Utah, which is the first state to ban supplemental fluoride. Florida yesterday passed a bill to ban supplemental fluoride. I'm confident Governor DeSantis is going to sign that. We are working, Lisa Holton and I are working together to change the federal fluoride regulations, to change the recommendations, and we're looking at the science now. I want to point out that in August, the National Toxicity Program, which was an arm of the NIH, did a meta review of all the science on fluoride and found that there's a direct inverse correlation between fluoride exposure and low IQ in children. So the more you get, the stupider you are. And we need smart kids in this country, and we need healthy kids. And thank you for your leadership. We're going to get there. We're reviewing the GRAS standards now we're revamping them to get 10,000 ingredients that are in our foods. The Europeans only have 400 ingredients. We have 10,000. There are chemicals we know nothing about. And we are going to stop that process, and then we're going to go back and look at these chemicals and make the companies either get rid of them or to label them. We've launched Operation Storage Speed. We're going full speed ahead to make sure that we have good, high quality milk for children. We have launched the autism study at your direction. By September, we'll have some of the first answers. Within 6 months of that, we will have definitive answers, not only for autism, but for the etiology of a whole range of autoimmune diseases that have become epidemic in our children. We have ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration.
They were lost.
And we have ended funding for gender mutilation surgeries and other kind of gender dysphoria practices. And thanks to Elon, we have saved $67 billion at our agency without compromising any of our critical programs. Mr. President, I want to thank you for your vision, for your leadership, for giving me the 100 busiest days of my life, and most exciting and most rewarding. And there's over the next 100 days, we're going to do much, much more.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bobby.
Very important. Thank you. Doug, please.
Well, President Trump, on your first day in office, you wisely declared a national energy emergency. And this was essential because it was a signal that we're going to go 180 degrees from the disastrous and dangerous Biden policies that were based on a climate ideology that was the root cause of the inflation in this country. It was the root cause of wars abroad. It was the root cause of our manufacturing disappearing from our country. We can't have energy security. Without energy security, we can't have national security, and you understood that. But now with everything that's flowed from that, dozens of other EOs that you've done, America is back in the energy business. As Chris said, there's been a signal that's sent around the world. Capital is flowing, coming back in. The smart money is coming to this country. And now you've given us a chance to win the AI arms race against China. We know we're up against a formidable competitor. China opened up 94 gigawatts of coal in the last year. That's more than all of California and all of New York combined in the last year. We've had presidents in the past, the Biden administration, that were running away again under this climate ideology. You've embraced baseload power in this country. I'll never forget standing in the East Room with you, surrounded by the coal miners around this country, where you said, "Hey, big beautiful coal." As we work to try to identify the balance sheet of America, our earliest estimate is that the coal resources in America, just on public lands, could be worth $8 trillion with a T. That was all going to be taken off our balance sheet if we weren't going to touch it. But now we're back in the business. I was 1,800 feet underground in a coal mine in Alabama a couple weeks ago. They do metallurgical coal. Without metallurgical coal, we can't produce steel. This is a plant. This is a plant that would have been in a mining operation that would have been shut down under the Biden administration. Disaster. What we're doing here, back in the business, we're doing leasing. We're leasing for oil and gas. We're leasing for timber with Brooke Rollins. We're leasing for grazing. We're leasing for critical minerals, which is key. And when we lease the public lands appropriately and by the law to do that, we're bringing in revenue. We're bringing in jobs. We're helping strengthen America. And so we're treating our natural resources like the American balance sheet they are. And America's resources, the 700 million acres of surface that's public, the 700 million of subsurface, the 2.5 billion offshore, all contain what we need to have self-sufficient supply chains. And so in this, we're focused deeply on critical minerals. The Biden administration put us in a real predicament right now. The whole trade team, the whole cabinet, Susie's jumping in, leadership across everybody, the National Energy Dominance Council. But of the top 20 critical and rare earth minerals that we need for defense, that we need for industry, China's controlling 85% of the refining for that. So we are running at warp speed 7 days a week to try to put ourselves back in business in that way. So, and I want to just close out by saying a couple other things. One is the border. Few people realize that 41% of the southern border is in the Department of Interior. And then we've got a few more percent that come with Brooke and with the Forest Service. But that's been a risk area. Part of the reason everyone was pouring into our country, Biden wasn't enforcing the border laws. They definitely weren't enforcing it on public lands. And so again, using tying two presidents that had great propensity for action, Theodore Roosevelt in 1907 created what was called the Roosevelt Reservation, 60-foot strip that go from Texas all the way to the Pacific Ocean. because he was worried in some future state there might be smuggling. I don't think he was anticipating human smuggling and fentanyl trafficking, but that has been largely unused. He gave us the authority to transfer that. And so working with Christie and working with Pete, we've transferred that to the DOD. So transferring land from the other agencies like Interior to the Department of Defense, and as Pete said, they can do the detain and assist with the military. And having been down at the border multiple times in recent week, I can confirm everything Christie said. The enthusiasm, the morale of that group is exactly 100% opposite of when Christie and I were down there as governors. I had Border Patrol people say that they were multi-generational service in that law enforcement that said, my wife and I are telling our children never to go into this thing, to go into Border Patrol. And people this time were saying, I got a 17-year-old. As soon as they turn 18-year-old, they're signing up. My wife is thrilled. They're going into law enforcement. They're so proud to be serving
Military
with you.
too, I
Everybody I've met, whether it's in a coal mine or at the border, law enforcement, the one thing they say on those trips is, please thank President Trump from all of us, the change that you're making.
Nice.
And I want to say especially this became very dear when we last week renamed a U.S. wildlife refuge in honor of Jocelyn Nungare. Jocelyn Nungare, of course, lost her life tragically to illegal Venezuelan gang members in this country in a horrific way. But her mother, Alexis, was at that ceremony. Her grandmother was there, and Jocelyn's great-grandmother was there. There are 3 other generations of that family were there. They all wanted to pass on their thank you too, and we've secured her name forever as a sanctuary, and really is saying that every child, every 12-year-old, every child in America should be safe in their own communities, and you've dedicated a beautiful piece on the coast in honor of her. So, President Trump, in your first term, when I had a chance to work with you as governor, you were courageous. The thing that's empowering this amazing group of people around this table, and you've probably assembled the greatest cabinet ever, is
Honestly,
that this time you're not
it's
just
wild to
courageous,
watch
you're
this.
actually fearless. And it's your fearlessness to take on the issues that other presidents would not touch, whether it's the work that we're doing with successfully streamlining and right-sizing government, or whether it's taking on the issues at the border, or whether it's embracing the power we need to win the arms race. You're fearlessly doing that, and that creates and just all of us can sprint because you're running ahead. So thank you.
Thank you, Doug. And
Total.
you are doing a great job. And with Chris, that's a pretty much unbeatable combination.
Yeah, those two guys crush it.
Thank you both very much. Thank you, Doug.
It's Rubio.
Marco?
Well, it's not easy to go last after all these reports.
Yeah, it's an amazing group.
First of all, so I better be good, and I'll be short as well. A couple things, Mr. President. I think you deserve a lot of credit for 2 things. The first is assembling this great team of people. Some of whom I've known for a long time, others who I've gotten to know during this period of time, but putting together a team, not just of talented individuals, but that work well together. It's something never going to be reported on in the media or focused seen, but it happens every single day. For the most part, I interact with almost everyone around this table at some level. And because of Secretary Kennedy, I'm afraid to eat anything. So
Drop it. Take it out of your mouth.
He said Tootsie Rolls are okay in moderation. But it's a great team. And here's the second.
Those
I
are
tell
organic.
this to people all the time. This is incredibly rewarding service, and you hear it in everyone's voices. That traditionally in the past, and it's one of the problems we got in as a country, is presidents would say, okay, let's go do something. And then they would have to do a study, and then a study on the study, and then a long internal deliberative process. And by the time you got to it, it was too late, or somebody had forgotten it. In this administration, it's moving. You know the direction because you know why you were elected. The American people elected you very clearly. And basically, it's measured, I used to say by days and weeks. Now it's measured by hours and minutes. But action is happening. And that's what people want to see. And I'm going to talk about foreign policy in particular because I'm not sure this is fully appreciated. This president inherited 30 years of foreign policy that was built around what was good for the world. In essence, the decisions we made as a government in trade and foreign policy was basically, is it good for the world? Is it good for the global community? And under President Trump, we're making a foreign policy now was it good for America? I was appointed by you and confirmed by the Senate to be the head of the United States Department of State.
Right.
Not the World Department of State, not the Global Department of State, the United States Department of State. And what that means is our foreign policy is guided by 3 things. Does it make America stronger? Does it make America safer? And does it make America richer? If something doesn't do one of those 3 things, and hopefully all 3 of those things, we're not doing it. Now, we went out and hired a consulting firm to help us organize ourselves. Luckily, they were free. They're called the Department of Government Efficiency. And they helped us do a couple things. Number one is our foreign aid. We were funding some crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. You tell me, how does a puppet show in some country around the world make us stronger, safer, and more prosperous?
Well, the
So we got rid of puppet shows and a bunch of other things.
That's the transgender.
I'm sure there were very good puppet shows. And I'm
Obviously,
sure that a bunch
Marco.
of charities in the world can go pay for it, but the American taxpayer should not. We've also, by the way, Mr. President, under your direction, reorganized the Department of State. We had offices within offices within offices that didn't even know they existed themselves, not to mention the rest of them. And so we've begun to reorganize that as a way to be able to empower our embassies and our ambassadors and our regional bureaus to do what many of them signed up to do. We have a great team of ambassadors you've appointed. They're coming online every single day. Very talented people that are involved. Something else we got out of the business of, wasn't widely reported, or maybe it was. We had an office in the Department of State whose job it was to censor Americans. And by the way, I'm not going to say who it is. I'll leave it up to them. There's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier in that building of social media posts to identify them as purveyors of disinformation. We have these dossiers. We are going to be turning those over to these individuals.
Was it me or Elon? That's funny.
We can follow up with the media.
Well, we are going to turn over these dossiers to the individuals, and they'll decide whether they want to disclose it or not. But just think about it. The Department of State of the United States had set up an office to monitor the social media posts and commentary of American citizens to identify them as vectors of disinformation.
Probably Tulsi.
When we know that the best way to combat disinformation is freedom of speech and transparency.
Thank you,
And
Marco.
so that's what we're going to be in the business of doing. We're not going to have an office that does that. Beyond that, Mr. President, this I'll move quickly because this has been a team effort. We have gone to countries all over the world and said, hey, you want good relations with the United States? You need to take back your people that are here illegally. And we've had historic cooperation. Beyond that, and I say this unapologetically, we are actively searching for other countries to take people from third countries. So we are active, not just El Salvador. We are working with other countries to say, we want to send you some of the most despicable human beings to your countries. Will you do that as a favor to us? And the further away from America, the better, so they can't come back across the border. I'm not apologetic about it. We are doing that. The president was elected to keep America safe and to get rid of a bunch of perverts and pedophiles and child rapists out of our country. Here's something else we've done. We stopped giving student visas to people who are coming here to burn down our universities and take over libraries and harass people. Why are we giving student visas to people who are coming here to create disruption? And we've taken away the student visas of people that are coming here to do that. It's simple. If you're coming to America to start riots, we're not going to give you, we're going to take away your student visa. And by the way, every country in the world that I've traveled, 14 countries in 14 weeks, you know what they all say to me? Yes, that's what we would do too.
Obviously.
So the only people who seem to disagree with us are a handful of federal judges and a bunch of crazy people who get paid to write and report. So anyway, we're getting rid of that. The last, but now here's some good news. We're going to have the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, the FIFA Club Cup, and then we're going to have the Olympics. So we have to have a Consular Affairs Bureau. We have very good, talented people there, but we are going to infuse technology, again, working with our consultants, to be able to, millions of people are coming into this country for this. And, but we've done it to improve customer service. So some of us who served in Congress recognize that about a year and a half ago, we had a meltdown under Biden. You couldn't get a passport. You got people calling, I have a cruise on Friday, my passport expires. In the month of March, we processed 2.78 million Americans, their passports. That is the historic, never in any, it's the largest single month processing of passports ever. And we think it's a good way to build the momentum to be able to do the visas.
Wow.
Two last points I want to make. We have a great team that you've built. I want to especially acknowledge Steve Woodcock. This is a person that doesn't have to be doing what he's doing. He has a very good life in Miami, my hometown as well. He has worked incredibly hard, has done it without any agenda. And we need to acknowledge him. I want to acknowledge Mr. Boulos as well, who did something really great last week. They told us this war between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda is an intractable. It can never happen. It will never happen. I sent Mr. Boulos, your envoy. A week later, I look on my schedule, the signing of a declaration of peace between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. We signed it at the State Department last week. We hope it will lead now to a lasting permanent peace that we hope to invite them back to Washington to sign. So two great, and we have a lot of good people working on our teams as well, but these are two great people. Mike Waltz alluded to this earlier, and this is the last point. In the first 100 days of the 47th presidency, 47 wrongfully detained Americans have been returned to the United States, thanks to your leadership and the diplomacy that was exercised to make that happen. 47 for the 47th president in the first 100 days. And that's all credit to you, Mr. President. Thank you for the honor to be able to serve alongside you, for you, and alongside all these excellent people.
What a cabinet, man.
Really great job. So, I've been involved in a lot of groups of people over the years, good groups, bad groups, all types of groups. But I have been involved in some incredible groups, but I've never been more proud and impressed, frankly. Impressed is maybe even more important, but I've never been more proud or impressed than I am with this group. This is an amazing group of people, and I hope some of those television cameras were blazing and it was on so people could watch this because, frankly, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, this is an impressive group of people. I sat around being somewhat competitive. I said, well, let's see, who did the best job, who did the worst job? And I determined that everybody's like the same and there was no worst job. Everybody was outstanding. Everybody did a job. You couldn't pick a winner. The only thing you can say is nobody did a bad job or even a fair job. You're outstanding. And so I want to just congratulate you all. This is really something. And, we have a job to do. We've done a lot of work in this 100 days. We've established things that are going to start taking place in the next 100 days. I want to see what it's going to be like. I think we're going to have to do this in 100 days, Susie, and we're going to see some very big results from the things that we've done. But I just want to thank everybody. This is really very impressive, and I hope the people at home got to see some of it. Nobody's ever done public cabinet meetings. They were quiet for a reason, because they weren't impressive. And especially in the last administration. They were not impressive.
That's right.
But I just want to say that we're very proud of you, and I am in particular. Thank you all very much. Great job. And I think we're going to have some tremendous success for our country. And I don't know, it doesn't seem like a time to be asking questions. That was so impressive that to be taking questions. Why did you do this? Why did you do that?
Kick them out.
It just doesn't seem to be appropriate. I guess we probably have to take a couple because that was the purpose. But if you'd like to ask some, I think they should be very respectful questions at this point. This was an amazing meeting. And so if you'd like to ask a couple, if you'd like to pinpoint them to some of the secretaries, et cetera,
Yes.
would be fine. Yes.
Secretary Rubio, can I ask you a question? You brought up El Salvador in your remarks. Have you been in touch with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia? Has a formal request from this administration been made?
Well, I would never tell you that. And you know who else I'll never tell? A judge. Because the conduct of our foreign policy belongs to the President of the United States and the executive branch, not some judge. So we will conduct foreign policy appropriately if we need to. But I'll never discuss it. And no one will ever make us discuss it because that's how foreign policy works.
Thank you, Marco.
Get
out!
Yesterday, you told ABC News, Mr. President, you told ABC News yesterday that you could get Abrego Garcia back if you wanted to. Do you think President Bukele would turn you down if you made that request?
I really don't know. I know that he's been a great friend of our country. He's gotten a lot less money than this would take from us if we were going to build these jails and do what he's doing. And they run a very professional operation. I don't know.
You're obsessed with this
I
gangbang.
really leave that to the lawyers, and I take my advice from Pam and everybody that is very much involved. They know the laws, and we follow the laws exactly.
In the transition, sir, you frequently took credit for the stock market highs. You said it was a reflection of how well you were doing in the polls, and then after you were elected, you said the stock market highs were a reflection of how well the transition is going and the American people's confidence in your incoming administration. Now, the stock market's not doing so well, and you're saying that's the Biden stock market, yet you are the president. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I'm not taking credit or discredit for the stock market. I'm just saying that we inherited a mess, both at the borders. You could look at every single one of the people here, and no matter who it is, they're doing better, and they are far superior to what took place for 4 years before us. When you look at prisoners being allowed to come into our country at will, just at will, people from mental institutions, gang members, drug dealers, when you look at that, what they've done to our country, and also having to do with finance, look at what happened with inflation. We had the worst inflation probably in the history of our country. They say 48 years, but I would say in the history of our country, it ate away at people. And even though you saw a stock market going up somewhat, because in my case, I had the biggest stock market increase, 88% in the last term, in my last term. But I don't view the stock market as the end all. It's an indicator. But what the stock market really tells you, and when you look at the stock market in this case, is it says how bad a situation we inherited. This is a quarter that we looked at today. And we took all of us together. We came in on January 20th. So this is Biden. And you can even say the next quarter is sort of Biden because it doesn't just happen on a daily or an hourly basis. But we're turning it around. It's a big ship to turn around. And we're going to have the greatest country financially in the history of the world, I believe. I think we're going to do things and we had to do it. We reset the table. We were being ripped off by every single country without exception. I'd have to really think hard for who hasn't taken advantage. And I don't even blame those countries. I blame the person that was sitting right here where I am for allowing it to happen, where our country was ripped off on trade, hundreds of billions of dollars. And now we're doing better than we've done in a long time. You know, we were losing $4 to $5 to even $6 billion a day on trade with Biden. And now we have it down to a very manageable number. And the tariffs, for the most part, haven't even kicked in yet. So that's the way stock markets to me are an indication. But the big indication is what's happening. And the people around the table know what's happening. Yes.
The Ukraine minerals deal is set to be signed in 24 hours or so. Is it true that the Ukraine minerals deal is about to be signed in the next 24 hours or so? There's some reports saying that. And if it's true, has the deal changed at all from the last time we heard about it?
Well, I'll ask Scott to answer the question because he's responsible for it.
Yeah, our side's ready to sign. Ukrainians decided last night to make some last minute changes. We're sure that they will reconsider that, and we are ready to sign this afternoon if they are.
Can you talk about those last minute changes? What was removed or put in its place?
Nothing's been removed. It's the same agreement that we agreed to on the weekend. No changes on our side.
Just to put that in perspective, though, when I came here, I said, how much money have we given to Ukraine? The real number is about $350 billion. It's unthinkable. And we had no security. We had no nothing. We were just pouring money there, unsecured money, putting it in banks, and anybody could have taken it out. You know, anybody over there, it was their decision. I've never seen anything like it. Europe, on the other hand, which it's obviously that whole situation is much more important to Europe because we have an ocean in between. But Europe gave about $100 billion. It's a lot of money. It's a big sacrifice they made also. But they gave much less than we did. And their money is secured, totally secured by deposits in banks. The deposits are largely Russian deposits. That's what Europe did, but their money is secured. So they gave $100 billion totally secured. We gave money like it's throwing it out the window. And it was done by Biden. And this is Biden's war. This isn't Trump's war. I'm trying to get out. And more than the money, they're losing about 5,000 young Russian and Ukrainian soldiers a week, mostly. There's some people also being killed in towns where missiles should not have been shot, small cities and towns. But we are trying to save the lives of about 5,000 young, mostly soldiers that are losing their lives a week. I see satellite photos, probably off one of his satellites, come to think of it. But I see satellite photos every week of fields with arms and heads and legs scattered all over. It's a violent, horrible situation. And more important than the money, I want to save the lives of people from other countries that are dying so stupidly, so needlessly, and they're dying. But I said, what are we doing? How did we get into this war? Would have never happened if I were president. Everybody knows, and it didn't happen for 4 years. Wasn't even thought of. I discussed it with President Putin a lot. Ukraine was the apple of his eye, but there was no way he was going to do anything. Zero chance. And I said, we feel foolish. The Europeans are putting up money. It's totally secure. They get the money back. We're putting up much more money. We have absolutely nothing. And I didn't want to make a complicated deal. I didn't want to make a deal that couldn't be made because Ukraine doesn't have very much money. They're going through a very bad period of time. It's been brutal. But I felt very foolish being a judge. So I said, well, we want something for our efforts beyond what you would think would be acceptable. And we said rare earth. They have very good rare earth. As you know, we're looking for rare earth all the time. Rare earth is called rare for a reason. And they have a lot. And we made a deal where our money is secure, where we can start digging and doing what we have to do. It's also good for them because you'll have an American presence at the site, Chris. And the American presence will, I think, keep a lot of bad actors out of the country or certainly out of the area where we're doing the digging. So we made a deal, and I assume they're going to honor the deal. I put Scott in charge, and Scott's done it beautifully, but we haven't really seen the fruits of that deal yet. I suspect we will.
You had set a 90-day deadline through an executive order for Secretaries Hegseth and Noem to review whether to recommend to you whether to invoke the Insurrection Act to send troops to the southern border. Is that something you're still considering?
Well, I'm talking to them, and it's not hard and fast, but I'm talking to them, and I will tell you that the border is the most secure it's ever been. We have never had anything like it. And when you said, Christy, before, it's 99.999, and I guess that means one person maybe, or two people. It's actually turned out to be three people came across the border versus hundreds of thousands of people under Biden. And we're talking about people coming, look, people, they have souls, they have hearts, many of them are good, but we have a country that's under siege. We have a country that really is I think it's under attack. In many ways, worse than under attack because there are no uniforms. You don't know who the attacker is. So you really don't. It's not like you're fighting an army. You're fighting people. You don't even know who they are. But 11,888 murderers, many of them murdered far more than one person, are roaming. Now, some of them have already been caught. A lot of them have already been caught and taken out. But we're being impeded by judges from doing our job. And hopefully that situation is going to be solved because I think nobody wants to have murderers and people from jail. And I mean for serious, serious crime. I remember the Biden people used to say, no, aliens that came into our country and they don't commit crime. I said, they don't commit crime. They commit worse crime. They make our criminals. Some of these people that they've allowed in through open border policies, the dumbest thing I've ever seen. You can look at some of these people and you say, this is not going to end well. But the people that they've allowed into our country are making our criminals look like the nicest people on earth. I will tell you, these are serious criminals. These are violent criminals. These are people that would kill you and wouldn't lose an ounce of sleep. And they wake up the next morning and they don't even remember it. This is a rough, tough group of people. And we've got to get them out of our country. And the law says, I believe, I hope, and I think Pam will be very successful in proving it. But we've run into, I would call them rogue judges. Somebody could criticize me for that. These are rogue judges. These are radical left, generally radical left, horrible judges. And we didn't lose all of these people. You know, we've lost a lot of people to death and to rape, all sorts of crimes committed by the people that poured into our country. And they came in totally unimpeded. Just come on in. Yep. And you see it every night. You'd see thousands and tens of thousands of people pouring into our country. We have no idea.
Living under bridges.
Who they are. And to this day, we're looking for people. We have no idea. We hear that we have terrorists in our country that are so bad, they couldn't stay in any other country, but we're getting them out. And the group between Pete and Christy and Tom Holman and everybody working together, people that you would least suspect are reporting them, getting it, and the public is reporting them. The public is seeing. The public is calling and they're saying, you know, I live in a house and next to me moved in a group of people and they are very violent. And would go and would find out and would say, yeah, you're right, they were really violent. And we have information on most of them. So I just think it's incredible what's taken place. But we right now have a very, very secure border. Right now, we have the most secure border in the history of our country. So I don't think we have to worry about your question too much.
Mr. President, Prime Minister of Canada ran against, not only against the Conservatives, but also against you. Yesterday, yesterday he spoke about American betrayal. Are you interested in rebuilding relations with Canada? And
No.
if so, how?
No, well, I think we're going to have a great relationship. He called me up yesterday. He said, let's make a deal. You know,
Of course.
he was running for office. They both hated Trump. And it was the one that hated Trump, I think, the least that won. I actually think the conservative hated me much more than the so-called liberal. He's a pretty liberal guy. But no, I spoke to him yesterday. Couldn't have been nicer. And I congratulated him. You know, it was a very mixed signal because it's almost even, which makes it very complicated for the country. It's a pretty tight race. But he's a very nice gentleman. And he's going to come to the White House very shortly.
All bark, no
Within the
bite,
next
obviously.
week or less.
Mr. President, when will you speak to President Xi of China?
That'll happen. I mean, look, right now, and I told you before, they're having tremendous difficulty because their factories are not doing business. They made $1 trillion with Biden, $1 trillion, even $1.1 trillion with Biden selling us stuff. Much of it we don't need. You know, somebody said, oh, the shelves are going to be open. Well, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30, you know, and maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. But we're not talking about something that we have to go out of our way. They have ships that are loaded up with stuff, much of which, not all of it, but much of which we don't need. And we have to make a fair deal. We've been ripped off by every country in the world, but China, I would say, is the leading one, the leading candidate for the chief ripper offer. There has never been a country that's been ripped off more than the United States of America under some of the dumbest leadership. And it usually starts with the president. And you can go back, and I'm not just talking about Biden. It's been the worst. I mean, the trade deficits and everything else, he's been the worst. But he had no idea what he was doing. And I think somebody ought to look at the auto pen to find out who was really, because it wasn't Biden. Because nobody could agree to what he agreed to. I mean, he put our country at risk, at tremendous risk, and fiscal risk, financial risk. So I think we have it very much. I really believe that the next 100 days is going to be even better than this. Look, I read an editorial yesterday from a group that normally wouldn't write a good, that this is the most consequential presidency in history, in the history of our country. This is not a particular group that would write that kind of an editorial, but they see what we're doing and what we had to do. And I believe if this group, not just me, if this group wasn't here, I think our country was going to be in, if it was lucky, just serious trouble, but a lot worse than that. I think our country could have been a total disaster. Bad things were happening with our country, and we've stemmed the tide. We've turned it around, but we're going to really turn it around over the next 3 years, 3.5 years. We're going to turn it around, and then hopefully it'll be in such great shape. That's my goal, to put it in such great condition that it can't be destroyed.
You mentioned this last night in your speech in Macomb, but we're facing an unprecedented situation where there's a lot of abuses of nationwide injunctions, sort of seemingly designed to curtail your power, specifically when it comes to deporting these illegal, violent aliens that came in under the previous administration. Have you spoken to your team about ways to mitigate this and continue to deliver for the American people?
Good question. There are ways to mitigate it, and there's some very strong ways. There's one way that's been used by 3 very highly respected presidents, but we hope we don't have to go that route. But there is one way that has been used very successfully by 3 presidents, all highly respected, and hopefully we don't have to go that way. But there are ways of mitigating that. I want to thank you all very much. I thought this was an incredible cabinet meeting. I think there probably has never been a cabinet meeting like this.
I think that's right.
You've never seen it on tape, that I can tell you.
Yeah.
And I want to just congratulate everybody at the table, but we have a lot of work to do. But we're off to a great start. Thank you very much,
Do you
everybody.
enjoy, Mr. President, taking the White House back?
Kick him out.
Second time?
Thank you,
How's your life?
Thank you, everybody.
I'm working hard. I like my life. I'm working hard, but I like it because we're doing a lot of good for a lot of people. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Honestly, this is wild to watch. Is there another analog to this, a comparison? In other words, do you get to look inside other, they hard cut on that one. Somebody just cut it with a piece of scissors. I said, get out. You're done. Oh, it's like that old DVD thing. Is it going to hit the corner? Is it? No, it's not. All right, let's see. No. All right, we'll wait for 1 minute and we'll see. But my point was, do we see it didn't happen? Do we see anything like that in any other realm, right? Does any other government do anything like that where you get to poke inside and see how the entire cabinet is operating and hear direct updates from every single cabinet head around the table? It is exciting to see inside the government, to see who is doing the things and not allow them to hide in the gutters like they did for the last 4 years. So regardless of whether you agree with the policy or not, you got to give Trump an A+ for communication, for transparency, for opening up the doors and letting everybody come in there and even ask a question. Okay, the Democratic Party, even Obama, right? Those guys, they never did anything like that. And they didn't have free-for-alls where the media could just ask questions about gangbangers right to the president's face when it's not even a relevant issue because he got due process, plenty of it, in front of 2 judges and in front of a court of appeals. And even the deportation judge wrote Guatemala in there, and it's not a typo. It's Guatemala. That's what the holding of removal is for. So all of that I thought was very interesting. Pretty standard questions, but a lot of fun to jip in on that. But we're not done. We got a full show ahead. So that was just the warm up. And as I mentioned at the start, we've got Dugan updates. We've got more Kilmar updates, and we've got an Amy Berman Jackson update. She's the DC judge who's a disaster. And so let's talk about this one. We got Judge Dugan coming up, and thanks, my friends, for hanging with us and going through that. A little longer than I expected, but I thought it was well worth it. But anyways, all right, so here is what we've got. Judge Dugan, the judge who illegally escorted an illegal alien out of her courtroom out the back door, has now been suspended. Now, there's more to this. Is the suspension with pay? We think it is. But here is what the Supreme Court of Wisconsin has for us. You see, this is related to Hannah C. Dugan. And if you don't remember who she was the judge that we saw scooting her booty right out of the courthouse after she was charged with 2 crimes, one obstruction and the other concealment. Remember, this was the scene. She got arrested. This is kind of like what she was trying to do with the illegal, kind of sneak him out the back. But this was somebody capturing her and saying, hey, you want to answer any questions, Judge? Of course, she did not want to do that. But she was originally charged with 2 counts, one, concealing an individual to prevent his arrest and discovery, and also obstruction, right? Both of these were criminal charges in the Eastern District of Wisconsin. And this judge, not only has she been suspended temporarily with pay, we think, but she'll also be defending this case. Now, this article came out from local news. Milwaukee says that she has hired the LeBron James of lawyers. And who is it? Oh, it's an ex-Bush person. You're kidding. It's the former Bush Solicitor General. So we're going to come back on this. It sounds like she's going to dig her heels in and throw her weight around and really defend herself and play in the big leagues on this one. So we're going to hear from that and learn more about who Paul Clement is, as well as learn who the illegal alien is. This dude right here was the person that she tried to escape out of the courtroom. And we've got his criminal complaint also queued up. So we'll learn what he was charged with and why Judge Dugan didn't think it was concerning that the victims were seated in the courtroom as she was afuera-ing this dude outside of federal custody. So we'll come back to all of that. As you can see, lots of updates. But here's the big thesis on this. Hannah C. Dugan now suspended. And the AP News was also reporting on this. Here's a picture of this woman, if you recall. And she was suspended by the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Here's what they said. They said, all right, regarding Hannah C. Dugan, the judge, the court has learned that Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge Hannah C. Dugan has been charged with 2 federal criminal offenses. One of which is a felony and one of which is a misdemeanor. Supreme Court of Wisconsin chiming in on this. We got notice. This court is charged in the Wisconsin Constitution with exercising superintending and administrative authority over the courts of this state. Now, in the exercise of that constitutional authority, and in order to uphold the public's confidence in the courts of this state during the pendency of the criminal proceeding against Judge Dugan, we conclude as the Supreme Court, on our own motion, right? Nobody's asked them to do it, that it is in the interest of the public that she be temporarily relieved of her official duties. Now, accordingly, it is ordered in the exercise of this court's superintending and administrative authority over all courts in this state that Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan is temporarily prohibited from exercising the powers of a circuit court judge in the state, effective this date of this order and until further order of the court. Sent over to everybody else, including the court itself. And so she is suspended temporarily. The question is she going to be getting paid? And this was sent in by this individual called Wisconsin Right Now. Breaking news over there on X at Wisconsin_now saying, it appears that the Wisconsin Supreme Court is choosing not to suspend her pay, though. So she's getting paid to do nothing? Someone sent this email to the communications at the court. Hi, is Dugan's pay being suspended also? Thanks. Hi, Jessica. Thank you for reaching out. Says the court's official response to your question is that, quote, the order speaks for itself. All actions taken by the court are laid out in the order. So sounds like they didn't touch her pay. So she's going to still get paid, and she's going to be hiring some attorneys to come in and help her defend against this thing. Now, you remember what they alleged here. We read through this full complaint, and it was a doozy, saying that the Judge Dugan essentially learned that the feds were there and escorted this dude out, right? She was demanding that the deportation officers go speak to the chief judge. She moved them back into the chief judge's chambers and away. She went back out, made sure the coast is clear, and then she ignored the prosecutor who was there to prosecute this dude and ignored the victims who were seated in the courtroom, noted to the defense attorney to get him out of there, forcefully motioned for his attorney and a male that she did not know to approach. They appeared confused, and then she motioned them to leave through the back door of the courtroom, and they ran out of there. Victims seated in the courtroom. There was a foot chase after the dude escaped, and they caught him. So they charged Dugan 2 crimes, 1 felony, 1 misdemeanor. And we do have our full Dugan research card over at watcherlodge.com if you want to learn more about any of this. We've got the full criminal complaint there and more about who this individual is. So why did she do all of this? Why did she sacrifice her position as a judge to help this dude escape? Was she just excited after listening to an AOC speech or something and wanting to fight fascism? Well, we learned more about what this dude did and got our hands on the criminal charges and the complaint that has been filed against him. Homeland Security gave us the photograph. Eduardo Flores Ruiz, the illegal alien that the Wisconsin judge was shielding, has a violent criminal record with charges including strangulation, suffocation, battery, domestic abuse, illegally entering the U.S. twice, saying the American people have a mandate for President Trump to make America safe and secure our homeland. And I don't know, maybe she just looked at him in the eyes and said, I really see myself in him. And she just thought, I can relate to him. And I empathize with his struggle. So what happened was she escorted him out of the courtroom in violation of a warrant presented to her by federal agents. But here is what she was doing this on behalf of and for. She said, here, you have to escape these charges, essentially, and adjourned the case. Remember, the prosecutor was there. Maybe he was going to want to set the case for trial or maybe make a motion for a change of bond or something. But she adjourned it and got him out of there. And since he's illegal, right, what would the next step be? Once he knows that ICE is looking for him, he's gone. She was not just facilitating like a continuance. She knew that this dude was going to leave, that he was going to flee. Why would he come back if he knows ICE is going to be at his courtroom? Never, right? So he was not going to come back. So basically, she was also facilitating another crime, which would be a future failure to appear, which would require her to issue a warrant for this dude if she would even do that. Ridiculous. So here's what the charges were. You see, this is a criminal complaint that was filed against that illegal Eduardo. Filed back March 18th. It was working her way through her court, Judge Dugan, saying this guy got charged with 3 counts. 1, misdemeanor battery, domestic abuse, infliction of physical pain or injury. So 3 misdemeanors, domestic abuse, domestic violence. The above named defendant, Eduardo, was in this location, caused bodily harm to one person called DT. So we'll have different victims here. We got 3 of them, actually. DT is one. We've got MGS, so initials, and MAM. So MGS, MAM, and DT. So this dude's swinging at everybody, saying he did cause bodily harm to this person. He had intent to cause that harm, and he did it without their consent. It's a Class A misdemeanor. He could be in prison for 9 months on that one. We're going to get into the details of it. These are just the charges. Another one, same charge, 9 months on this one. Same offense, Class A misdemeanor, and another one to MAM. Okay, so what happened? We got these 3 people who all got abused by this dude before the judge escaped him out of the courtroom. Here's what the police report says, or the probable cause statement, rather. On the above date at around 11:38 p.m. at night, Officer Taylor Zuby was dispatched to a location for a battery call. Someone calls the cops. This dude is beating us up. Upon arrival, he was met at the door by the caller called MGS. MGS led the officers upstairs. Hi, officers. Thank you for coming. Yeah, he's upstairs. We ran upstairs and we met DTS and MAM, right? The 2 other victims of the crime. We also saw Eduardo, born in 1994, the above named defendant. Additional officers were dispatched because MGS, due to MGS being the only individual that spoke Spanish. Maybe English is what he meant, because everybody else spoke Spanish, I would guess. Anyways, MGS stated that she was lying in bed, so female comes to the front door, when she heard screaming from the kitchen. MGS went into the kitchen and observed DTS breaking up a fight between Ma'am and Eduardo. MGS stated that is when she called the police. Says, oh my gosh. Said DTS was accidentally struck while trying to break up the 2. So we got this battle. We got 4 people. So Eduardo is battling with Ma'am. They're fighting it out. DTS runs down, tries to break it up. He's like, dudes, calm down. And as he jumps in to break it up, he gets an elbow or pop to the face. Girl standing there going, what the heck? She calls the cops because it's out of control. Now, on scene, Eduardo claimed it was a mutual fight. He says, hey, man, he attacked me. He says it arose because I was playing loud music. At the time, Ma'am said that the defendant was just a friend that was staying the night at the residence, right? So this dude, Eduardo, comes over, starts playing music loud. Ma'am comes down. He says, excuse me, we're trying to rest here. Can you please turn it down? He says, I don't care. This is my house now. And it goes off the wire. Officers observed red marks and scratches to both Ma'am and the defendant. So these 2, duking it out. On March 13th, around 7 p.m., Ma'am and DTS walked into District 3 to elaborate on the previous night, right? So this happens. I don't know if they made an arrest or anything. Let's see. That night, they stated, well, actually, Eduardo lives there and has been living there for the last year. So then they re-interviewed MGS, right? So the other person who was there and called the cops and led the cops inside. They re-interviewed her. She stated that as she was trying to break up the fight in the kitchen, Eduardo intentionally elbowed her in the left arm without consent. He's like, no, yeah, he hit me too. It caused me pain. showed officers the bruise on her arm. Says, look, man, this dude is actually not a guest. He lives there, but he's like a maniac. He hurt me too. Stated that she was confused the day before and that, no, yeah, I didn't know what was happening. I was just, he lived at the residence. I didn't know what to say, but he lives there. Okay. He's not just staying there. So he actually lives there and had been living there when she first moved there since January 2025. So ma'am, the other probably dude, stated the altercation began the night before when he confronted his roommate. He says, hey, Eduardo, stop playing the music so loud. Music sucks. Trying to get some sleep here. Ma'am sent a text message to Eduardo asking him, can you turn down the music, please? Then ma'am stated that Eduardo then walked into the kitchen and began to yell obscenities towards him. You F&A mother son of a B, how dare you tell me to turn down my mariachi music? The defendant then began to strike ma'am in the face with a closed fist 30 times. Whoa. What'd you say about my mariachi music? Ah! Without consent and causing pain. Ma'am stated that while being struck, he fell to the ground and his girlfriend, DTS, tried to get between the two of them. Ma'am stated that while DTS got between them, then Eduardo began beating her, striking her in the forehead and arm with a closed fist before shoving her into the kitchen, causing her to fall as well. Ma'am stated he was able to regain his footing and place a chair between himself and the defendant to gain separation, blocking him off with the chair like a maniac. But the defendant was able to grab ma'am by the neck, impeded his breathing for 6 seconds. See, that's like felony status, right? In Arizona, you suffocate somebody like that, you aggravate that from a regular assault into aggravated assault. You can't cut off somebody's windpipe for 6 seconds while punching ma'am with his offhand, grabbing him here and just beating him. This judge is like, oh, no, that's okay. He deserved it. So let's escape out the back. Ma'am stated that they began wrestling on the ground before the cousin, MGS, intervened and attempted to break him up. Now, after the defendant was separated from ma'am, Eduardo stated he would really show him what he was about the following day. Ma'am and DTS went to the hospital for their injuries. They got Tylenol and ibuprofen. None of these three people consented to being struck by Eduardo. And so the judge, got this probable cause statement. All this was submitted to her court. And she said, well, we want him in our country a little bit longer. So we're not going to let ICE come and pick this dude up. So she committed a crime, in my opinion. And now she will be defending herself. Now, she got suspended. So what we see here is Judge Hannah Dugan, who was arrested for obstructing ICE, now has this sign outside the courtroom. So someone posted this up there. It says, if any attorney, witness coordinator, or other court official knows or believes that a person feels unsafe, please request a Zoom appearance. Okay. So now they're just approved Zoom appearances so the illegals can call into court. That's what they're up to. Now, there's also another judge, apparently, who's also out there, who is in Sawyer County in Wisconsin, who's doing the same thing. She's threatening, according to Wisconsin right now, saying not to hold court because of the arrest. She wrote that she has no intention of allowing anyone to be taken out of her courtroom by ICE and being sent to a concentration camp. Okay, so these judges are getting pretty aggressive out there, right? They're going to hold Zoom hearings. Okay, and these are just misdemeanors. So they're just misdemeanor courts, so they're not felonies. So they'll just let them Zoom in and ICE can't pick them up. Or they'll just refuse. Maybe this judge should be charged too. She made these comments in an email sent to judges. And hey, Wisconsin right now got these emails, so media credit them. Here's what they say. This came out from Monica Isham. Good morning, all. For those of you who do not know me, I am Monica Isham, Sawyer County Circuit Judge for Branch 2. I've been in this position for less than 2 years. Oh, here we go. I was elected as the first woman, first Native American, first minority altogether to serve as a circuit judge in Sawyer County. These people are freaking nuts. Why would you introduce yourself that way? No one can. Oh my gosh. I have sworn an oath to support the Constitution. Great. Since January, while I've endured many racial attacks in my court, it's probably because you lead with this type of crap. I'm a minority woman, Native American. Hi, nice to meet you. Oh, okay. Thanks, Judge. I have sworn an oath to the Constitution whatever. Now, while on the bench in my courtroom, I was called an immigrant. I have been told I have no jurisdiction over white people in my country. If you're going to be offended when people talk crap to you as a judge, maybe you shouldn't be a judge, you giant baby. I had a prospective juror loudly proclaim that she would not follow any orders from a brown or black person, and that the defendant were brown or black, they would find them guilty. Welcome to society. Yeah, there's a lot of people who go the other way as well. Okay, you have to be the judge to kind of flesh through this. What a sob story. This is a pathetic person who thinks that this gives them meaning or purpose when they go through their litany of horribles. Pathetic, honestly. Says something, I'm not going to send somebody to a concentration camp without due process, as both of the constitutions we swore to support requires. Should I start raising bail money? Yeah, maybe. I no longer feel protected or respected as a judge in this administration. You're not. You're not. You don't automatically get respect because you put on a robe. If there is no guidance for us and no support for us, I will refuse to hold court. Good. You should resign. I will not put myself or my staff who may feel compelled by any way to follow federal law. Then you should resign. If you're going to break the law, you should resign. I hope, man, I should just hang out outside her courtroom, honestly. Just hang out. She's a high priority court because she's an obstructionist-like person. We have a Judicial District 10 meeting on May 9th. I respectfully ask we be given some guidance. We may discuss this in Group 10. Please forward this along. If this costs me my job or gets me arrested, then at least I know I did the right thing. Well, I hope it costs you both, actually. Yeah, because if you're going to be encouraging other judges and conspiring with Dugan to have other judges obstruct federal law, you should be arrested for that. You're involved in a conspiracy. I mean, there were Trump attorneys and state advocates who were arrested for a lot less than that and charged with crimes in various states. So yes, Monica, you should, first of all, you don't deserve any respect for leading like this. What a pathetic way to open an email. I was elected as the first woman, first Native American, first minority altogether to serve as a circuit court judge in Sawyer County, which means we can have an opinion on you based on those credentials and whether you're qualified or not. You led with it, so we can judge them. All right, so that's what's happening in Wisconsin. And meanwhile, we've got this judge who is gearing up. Judge Hannah C. Duncan Dugan has an all-star legal team, including LeBron James of lawyers. And you can see here, she's getting a bunch of people to come circle the wagons and protect her. The federal obstruction case against Circuit Judge Dugan has drawn an all-star team of legal talent. Bunch of people coming in. Stephen Biskupik is here. We've also got another Republican who oversaw a bunch of high-profile investigations, but the most prominent is this dude, U.S. Solicitor General called Paul Clement. And you know who the Solicitor General is, right? That's the person who argues in front of the Supreme Court. As Solicitor General from 2005 to 2008, more than 100 cases in front of SCOTUS, currently representing Wilmer Hale, who's suing the Trump administration as well. He's been dubbed by some as the LeBron James of lawyers. Jason Luxzak and others are both partners at another prominent law firm. And so all the Bushies and all the neocon Republicans are joining forces with the Democrats to help judges help illegals escape federal law. Also, this person, Craig Mastantuano, is also someone else, another attorney for Dugan, longtime go-to criminal defense attorney in Milwaukee, and more. So she's assembling a whole team. Federal team is led by Assistant U.S. Attorney who's prosecuting her. Keith Alexander is a veteran prosecutor. This dude's got 15 years, heads the criminal division over there. This other person's called Kelly Watska, Deputy Chief of the Criminal Division in charge of financial crimes. And another person, Richard Froling, acting U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Wisconsin, oversees the federal team. So this is going to get spicy, right? We were asking ourselves, how are these judges going to handle these prosecutions? We saw the other judge in New Mexico, and he resigned already. He's not fighting it. He'll probably take a plea deal and just call it a day, maybe even help incriminate the others around him and facilitate, more charges against other TDA people based on whatever evidence he's got. So, but this is opposite, right? She did not resign. She was forced to be suspended. And the Supreme Court may have gone the other way, right? They could have said, well, actually, we'll just let her hang out. These are federal charges and we're fighting fascism or whatever, right? They could have done that, but they didn't. So they suspended her. And now she's going to fight. So we'll see what comes out of it. But this guy is the one who is the LeBron James of lawyers, so-called. 2005 to 2008, worked for Bush, the Bush Solicitor General, Georgetown University. During his career, argued many cases opposing gun control, defending a ban on same-sex marriage, advocating for the Affordable Care Act to stop it, defending Republican gerrymandering, and more. So he's fought on the right side of a lot of good causes on behalf of the Trump administration. Now, getting that money, man. I wonder what he's charging her too. Well, how much an hour do you think? 1,500 an hour, 2,000 an hour, maybe. Whew, I'm sure it's a lot. All right, so she's going to be paying for that, but the battle will continue. And a lot of people are rushing to her defense, the usual suspects, like this guy, David Brooks. Here's a little bit of what he said. He's like, she's a heroic person. We don't know the details, but she's heroic. These are these guys.
Trying to send a note of intimidation, not only to her, but to all judges and maybe to all Americans.
Intimidation?
But I don't
break the
yet
law.
know the specific details of this case, whether she escorted the guy out the jury door or whether she's let him. So that's all murky. I don't want to comment on this specific case. But especially on the issue of immigration, there are a lot of people who are appalled by what the administration is doing. And there will be times for civil disobedience. And to me, let's say she did escort this guy out the door. If federal enforcement agencies come to your courtroom and you help a guy escape, that is two things. One, it strikes me as maybe something illegal.
Yeah.
But it also strikes me as something heroic.
Okay.
And in times of trouble, then people are sometimes called to do civil disobedience. And in my view, when people do civil disobedience, they have to pay the price. That's part of the heroism of it, frankly. And so you can both think that she shouldn't have legally done this, and that morally protecting somebody against, or maybe not even in this case, but in other cases, frankly, a predatory enforcement agency.
Wild.
Well,
So
obviously-
you got these guys who are out there. They'll take an illegal loving judge who is escorting somebody out of her courtroom in the back door to avoid a federal warrant arresting her, while there are victims seated in the courtroom where the dude that you're helping escape, he beat them in the face and the elbow and other locations. And he will sit there and call her a hero, right? Sometimes you need a little bit of civil disobedience out there. It's interesting. He didn't have a lot to say nice about, like the J6ers or the parents protesting at the schools or the people protesting about COVID or anybody else who was engaging in a little bit of civil action, protesting obviously rigged elections and stolen parental rights and other things. He doesn't call them heroes, right? He calls them insurrectionists. But when it's a illegal loving judge who is obstructing against Trump, suddenly it becomes heroic. And there's a lot of that going on out there. These people are nuts. So here was another one. This is that foreign-born congressman who can't even speak English, who's impeaching our president now to pay off his campaign debt. Sri Thanadar, the grifting clown, says Western Lensman, also very articulate, introduced the articles of impeachment, and now he's in Congress screaming about it.
Just last week, federal agents attacked our principles of federalism by arresting Judge Hannah C. Dugan of Wisconsin inside a courthouse because Donald Trump and Kash Patel did not like how Judge Dugan administered her courtroom. A state courtroom, I remind you. Arresting state judges for exercising powers reserved to the states.
Okay, so he needs to get Rosetta Stone and work on his speech transcripts. We can't listen to any more of that. They also brought out Chris Christie, who looks a lot like Judge Duncan Dugan and probably shares a lot of the same empathies and things. Like, it's a lot of work for her to get up out of her chair and escape this dude out the back of the courtroom. And so he's basically on Team Dugan. They probably go get donuts together.
Tell you, Martha, this is one of those situations where everybody, I think, is acting badly. All right. So first off, I don't know what this judge was thinking in terms of trying to help a criminal defendant try to avoid a arrest warrant from federal authorities. And, it's not a typical judicial action in my experience, not something a judge would normally do. Now, on the other side, when you really read through this, I don't know that the complaint, the indictment that was filed is completely consistent with the affidavit that was filed because, this guy did wind up in a public courtroom near public elevators after he left the courtroom and was seen by one of the agents who was there to assist in the apprehension. So whether or not the way they're characterizing these facts are
because you could have
completely
gotten
accurate
him.
is something we're going to have to see when we get to a trial in this case. I think the judge overstepped her bounds here. Now, whether the appropriate remedy here, Martha, is an arrest and a federal indictment, clearly what the Justice Department is trying to do is send a very, very aggressive message against everyone in this conduct. And I don't know that that's something that I would have found necessary to do, especially when you apprehended the person within moments after they left the courtroom.
Yeah, okay, because I guess no harm, no foul. You can allow state judges to just obstruct federal agents as long as they catch them in the end. What a joke. All right, that's Chris Christie. Obviously, they have a lot in common, so he loves her. Now, we see more here. We had this one got shit clipped out. We're going to clean the palette after listening to these libs in a minute. But this guy was even saying, yeah, it was unprecedented and performative cruelty. And you remember this guy, this was Andy McCabe, one of the worst liars from the FBI's recent past, out talking about this on CNN.
Probable cause phase, which is where we are right now. And I think when you start looking at how the judge was treated after the events that led to the charge, so where and when and how she was arrested, and the fact that she was arrested at the courthouse rather than her own residence, the fact that she was placed in a jail cell for hours before her arraignment was called in the court later in the afternoon. These things are unprecedented. Typically, upstanding members of the community who have no criminal history and aren't accused of a violent act are allowed to self-surrender at the
Oh, tell that to like 1,200 J6ers, okay, with no criminal history at all, who are allowed to self-surrender. They had raids. They kicked their doors in, raiding them all over the place. Hey, man, no one's above the law there, Andy. And I think the statute of limitations has probably expired on his crimes, but that's hilarious. Normally, people are just allowed to self-surrender. Not in the Biden DOJ, they weren't. They raided everybody. Are you kidding me? So Mays did a great clip on this. They're having to eat a lot of their words because they spent the last 4 years, and they said that, due process was whatever they said it was, while they violated the rights of American citizens, and no one even woke up or batted an eye over it. But here, this account, Mays, is awesome. So make sure you're following Mays more on X. Says, we got this little side-by-side of one of the worst people out here. And, Andrew Weissman is explaining, when Trump's arrested, it's totally normal. No one's above the law. Chris Christie's, thesis and Andy McCabe's thesis about cruelty and all that crap doesn't matter, right? You can raid a former president's house with the FBI on a fake warrant constituted by Jay Bratt and the Jack Smith team, ransack Melania's bedroom, go through Barron's closets. All that's perfectly normal when it's Trump. But if you go after a judge, suddenly things are falling apart. So here's this side by side of one of the dumbest commentators on MSNBC.
He is being treated no better or worse than anyone else.
Trump.
This is not selective prosecution, that this is not somebody who's singled out, that he is being treated just like anyone else. That is what it means to have a rule of law. That is what the Justice Department is really signaling and messaging here, is that everyone will be treated, as Merrick Garland has said, as equally in this country. This is really a great day for America. So there has been a violation here that we know for sure, and it is not the judge. Right, exactly. You don't do it. Even if you thought that there was a ground for doing this, the judgment call that you thought that this is the case to bring, it tells you everything. There is no adult in the room who would have said, "Are you kidding me? Why would you possibly do this?" And the answer is because we want to send a signal to the judiciary, and that's what you shouldn't be doing.
Okay, so obviously they can't even see their double standards when they hit them right in the face. But we also had some good reaction from some others. So Bill Barr was out, and even Bill Barr came out and said, Trump's allowed to do this, okay? You can't be a federal judge obstructing the Department of Justice, or a state level judge obstructing the Department of Justice. And Dugan is getting what's coming to her. old Bill Barr's back.
I doubt it'll get to the Supreme Court because I think the law is so clear. The states argue, the sanctuary states argue, they don't have to affirmatively assist us, the feds, in getting hold of these illegal aliens. But this isn't a question of assisting. This is actually interfering with, of harboring, of getting in the way. And so I don't think there's any question about this. And I think it's time for zero tolerance and getting back to basics, which are that judges and state officials are still citizens. They're subject to the federal law, and they cannot interfere in or impede the federal function. So I'm 100% in agreement with what's done.
Well, of course, you know how the media is going to play it. And of course, the Democrats already have begun. The protests have begun suggesting that this is Trump again being the imperial president who's a dictator now and ignoring the courts. Do you think any courts will pick up on that? Any courts to which these cases might be appealed?
Yeah, I mean, some state courts, there's some very liberal state courts, they may try to go down that path, but at the end of the day, they'll be slapped down because these judges do not have the right to interfere with the federal government performing its function.
And Bill Barr is right? What's happening here is a pattern that is existing across jurisdictions, whether they're at the federal level or the state level, whether they're in DC or in Wisconsin or Colorado. Judges think that they are in charge of policy. They're not. And when things don't go their way, they throw little temper tantrums. Many of them do it in the form of a wino type of opinion, like Beryl Howell writes out after, Long Friday night, Trump, having some emotional turmoil in her personal life, takes it out on Trump, have some more wine, whatever. Others do this. They throw little temper tantrums after they got done, reading Bernie's book or whatever. Fight fascism. And so she runs this dude out. But the fact is, it's illegal. They're not allowed to do those things. And so no one's above the law. They just got done lecturing us on that. And now the prices must be paid for breaking the law. Here is what Tom Homan said about this, furious about this. And how dare she even think about doing this? She, of course, if anybody, judges, governors, anybody impedes our work and breaks the law in doing so, you're in trouble.
I said from day one, you don't have to support ICE's operations. You can support sanctuary cities if that's what you desire to do. Sanctuary cities can stand aside and watch ICE keep their community safe, because any public official, whether you're mayor, city councilman, or governor, their number one responsibility is protection of the communities. And ICE has been clear, we're targeting public safety threats and national security threats. I can't believe there's any elected official, and especially a judge, that doesn't believe we should be doing that, and they should be helping us. But I said from day one, you can sit aside and watch, you can argue against us all you want and protest all you want, but when you cross that line, I've said this 1,000 times, when you cross that line to impediment or knowingly harboring, concealing an illegal alien from ICE, you will be prosecuted.
Thank you, Tom.
Judge or not. I said from
Thank you, Tom. Judge or not, doesn't matter. So don't do it, okay? Follow the law. Otherwise, you will pay the price for it. Senator Ashley Moody was also talking about this, posted this week, says, I was a judge for over a decade. Hello. If a colleague of mine helped a criminal evade law enforcement or destroy evidence, it would be a crime, obviously. It is not a constitutional crisis to arrest someone who commits a crime. It's how you restore law and order. Ashley Moody from Florida.
Listen, I served as a judge for over a decade. If a colleague of mine had helped a criminal evade law enforcement, if a colleague of mine had harbored someone that law enforcement was looking for, or even, I believe one of these judges went so far as to destroy potential evidence, that's a crime. It doesn't matter what your job is, whether you're a judge or any other profession. So, do not listen to the Democrats where they start talking about, oh, we have a constitutional crisis because we're arresting judges. We're arresting people that are committing crimes.
Absolutely.
It does not matter your position.
Don't break the law, judges, and don't act like your little anti-fascist, heroes or something. So we're going to keep our eye on this case, of course. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. Now, the latest on this is that we had the complaint filed. We have another preliminary hearing scheduled on May 15th. And so as it stands, right now, we've not seen the notice of appearance filed yet by her new legal team, but those will be dropping soon. We'll keep our eye on this one. And as I mentioned, if you want to get the latest on what's happening here with Judge Dugan, check out watcherlodge.com. It's free. We have all these research files over there that we're building out, kind of building in public. We're posting memes. We have a chat. We have show notes. We have case files, all the PDFs, but all the Dugan documents are over there. So just check it out, watcherlodge.com. Access all this stuff for free. And we will see you over there and back here on the next one. All right. And so, my friends, let's do another update. We got 2 more stories. And now it's Kilmar time. Uh-oh. We got this story coming up. And there was a lot of talk about this today. Here is the latest with Kilmar. New documents show that senators and the Democrats, their little love fest with this dude called Kilmar Abrego, the guy who was sent to El Salvador, in my opinion, lawfully, now show that there's even more indicia that he is a gang member. This document was released out of the Circuit Court for Prince George County in Maryland. And there's a backstory on this. You're not going to recognize this name probably, Edwin Trejo Ramos, but you may recognize this name, Jennifer Vasquez Sora. She, Jennifer, is the wife of Kilmar, the person who has been afuera out of our country with the MS-13 tattoos on his fingers as a gang member under the Alien Enemies Act, deported appropriately to El Salvador. Now, rewinding the clock, you see, this is a 2018 case. This was filed by baby daddy, the ex of Jennifer Vasquez, against her, okay, saying, I got to get custody of my kids back. And there's a lot that goes into this, but here is what the motion that was filed in Maryland says. It says, listen, the undersigned party is acting to safeguard the children who are now in the physical custody of Jennifer Vasquez, Kilmar's wife, currently. Why are the children in danger? He says the children or child are in serious danger at this time because Jennifer tried to kill herself, and she left the kids with 11-year to take care of them. And I'm afraid because my kids are in danger because she is dating a gang member. Oh no, who could that be? Now, it doesn't say Kilmar, right? So maybe she's dating some other gangbanger. Maybe she just likes gangbangers, but saying she's dating a gang member. Now, I know these facts to be true because I was there and the police was there too. So do we have a police report from a suicide attempt from Jennifer Vasquez sometime around 2017, 2018? And is this person talking about Kilmar? Probably. All the times line up. Says, I've made the attempt to notify Jennifer about this, that I'm coming to court. Her response was, the court can't give you custody of the kids because the therapist told me. Her phone number is, here's where they live. There's no adequate remedy at law. So you fill out this form signed by Edwin Trejo Ramos saying, I swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury, this is all true. Help me get my kids back, right? She tried to eliminate herself and she's living with a gang member. Now, when you compare and contrast all of the times and dates and everything as the New York Post has, here's what they explain, right? This is Jennifer. Jennifer is the same woman who said that Kilmar's a loving father and he's amazing. Definitely not a gangbanger or any of those things, even though we got 2 orders of protections filed by her against him, one of which said that he ripped her clothes off, beat her, left her a black eye, scratches, and more. Now, all the attitude has changed once CASA comes behind her and ACLU comes behind her, and they turn this dude into a saint. Here's what the New York Post says in addition to that document we read. They say, he was accused of being a gang member. It was Kilmar. The ex-wife made the claim, the ex of the wife made the claim when he filed documents seeking an emergency court hearing on the custody of the couple's 2 children, saying she's dating a gang member. So you can just add that to the list of everything else. The tattoos, the human trafficking stop in Tennessee, his arrest with other gangbangers, his identification by other confidential human sources, and more. Ramos, though, the person who wrote that letter and that motion to the court, is currently incarcerated in Maryland. He went on to claim that he feared for his children's lives, alleging that Sora had tried to eliminate herself. The petition was first obtained by Fox 45, does not identify Kilmar by name, The judge denied the motion, saying, I don't have jurisdiction. Basically, you're in the wrong court. Go file it over there. Right. He didn't know what he was doing. He's just filing. I got to go to court and file something. Went to a court, filed something, wrong court. Abrego and Sura, the Jennifer wife, is a citizen. They met in 2016, right? So if she's still dating that dude in 18, they moved in together. And in June 19, they got married when Garcia was being held in an immigration center. Standing on opposite sides of the security glass wall, Sura gave birth to their son a few months later. They got married while he was in an immigration center. Isn't that interesting? In June. Huh. So it's almost like they got married, not necessarily because they want, maybe they love each other, but it's also very convenient to get married when you're about to be deported. We're married. My wife's a citizen, so can't deport me. The timeline of the relationship suggests that the claim in the petition referred to Abrego, Garcia, Kilmar. Both Abrego and his family have asserted he's not a member, but yeah, he is. The Justice Department previously highlighted a police report where a confidential informant said, yeah, definitely a gangbanger. And at the time, Abrego was arrested for loitering in Home Depot with 3 other men, 2 of whom were definitely MS-13. The officers also said they contacted a reliable source. The dude had a name. His name was Chaqueo. He goes by the street name Chele. His wife covers up the tattoos every opportunity she can. Garcia was not charged at the time. Last month, he was detained by ICE and deported. They afuered him to CCOT, which was appropriate. We've already made several videos on this. But the withholding of removal was for Guatemala. It was not for El Salvador. He's in El Salvador. Just because the DOJ missed it doesn't mean the judge wrote it differently. In spite of the admission, the Trump administration was vehemently stuck to its guns, saying, nope, he's gone. Maryland judge said, bring him back. And of course, we heard a little bit from Rubio today saying that is not going to happen. So here was more from Pam Bondi. She was explaining what's going on in these first 100 days, saying we are just taking out criminals, gangbangers, other people, bringing in fentanyl and more. Here was Pam.
Sean, this is all at Donald Trump's directive, and this is what all of us have been doing as a team since day one when he took office, make America safe again. We took out an ISIS terrorist in New York, right in New York, brought to justice the Abbey Gate terrorist, started an October 7th task force, brought 2 illegals to justice who ran one of the largest human trafficking rings in the country, dismantled a Sinaloa drug pipeline with 1,000 pounds of meth, 17,000 fentanyl pills, 20,000 fake mollies with fentanyl in them that could kill multiple people.
We saw a lot of that in the prior press briefing from her. So kind of the same list of accomplishments. Now, meanwhile, in the case itself, we recall that we had a pause on the discovery. So Judge Zenas, and we have a research file on her over at the Lodge, watcherlodge.com, but she originally said, we're going to stay discovery, remember, until today. April 30th, 5 p.m. was the deadline, saying that we don't need the government to provide answers to the questions that she demanded. What are you doing to bring Kilmar back? Who has control of him? When is he coming here? All those questions. I want answers on it, right? And Trump basically responded to the first discovery demand with like, I'm not answering your questions. Like, no. And so they flipped out. All the ACLU gangbang lawyers, they flipped out. Then we saw a bunch of these sealed filings. What's going on here? Sealed filing by Noam and Rubio. And then today, we've got a final update. So we got a revised scheduling order, and the discovery looks like they were asking for an extension of the stay on discovery so that they did not have to answer those questions. But the judge says no more time on this. For the reasons discussed at the proceeding today, the motion to stay discovery is denied. So we got some new deadlines, and the judge just gave us an update on these, saying, here we go. All right, the 1-week stay of discovery from Judge Zenas Rhymesworth expires today at 5 p.m. In advance of that deadline and following the court's denial of the motion to stay discovery, so the discovery is going to pick back up, the court sets forth the following revised schedule. So by no later than Friday this week, just days from now, the ACLU gangbangers must narrow their interrogatories, so their questions 9, 10, and 11, and their request for production of documents, number 6, 7, and 8, to be consistent with the court's order, right? So some of those were a little bit overbroad, and so they're going to narrow those down, and then Trump's going to have to get those to them by Friday. We'll see what they deliver. Trump shall answer and respond to all outstanding discovery requests and supplement their invocation of privilege consistent with this court's order by Monday as well. Okay, so like everything else that they say they want from you, get it to us. Trump's not going to get it to them. She's going to issue probably sanctions or hold them in contempt or whatever. The depositions all must be done by Friday of next week. So Robert Cerna, Michael Katz, Kazak, and Mazzara, all of those people submitted declarations. We've already read those here, right? They're saying, yeah, this is what we did. Several of them just said, nope, he's still in El Salvador every day. Nope, he's still in El Salvador. Still in El Salvador. But they're going to have depositions, okay? So now the ACLU gangbangers are allowed to depose government officials for doing their jobs because Judge Zenas from Maryland said so. Then, by Wednesday next week, ACLU may move for leave of this court for 2 additional depositions of information. Okay, so then after that fourth round is, the round of 4 is done, then they're going to come back and say, we want Noem, we want Rubio, we want everyone else. Trump shall respond by Thursday. So you can't have Rubio, you can't have Noem, no. Now, at the conclusion of this discovery, then supplement your motion. And so we're going to get a lot of this stuff up by the middle of May, May 14, 2025, signed by Paula Zenas out in Maryland. Now, while all this is happening, Senator Chris Van Hollen is still salivating for those margaritas that he enjoyed with Kilmar down in El Salvador. And he wrote a whole letter. He sent this letter over to Trump, and he's absolutely losing it. He says, the Trump admin admitted in court that it never should have abducted Kilmar. Hey, by the way, that's not what they admitted. What the hell are you talking about? Yet it continues to defy a court order to facilitate his return. First of all, this dude, they said that in a court document. Trump said, we should never have abducted Kilmar. Is that a word used anywhere? Don't think so, because we've read it all. So they didn't admit that, you liar. And also, the facilitation phrase was also contemplated with due deference to the executive branch. You guys keep leaving that little phrase out of here. Trump's claims that there's nothing he can do. I wrote him today, and here's what he wrote. It's actually kind of interesting what he wrote. He says, all right, dear Trump, you know, I read with great interest your interview with Time about the Supreme Court's 9-0 decision ordering you to facilitate the return of Kilmar. He left out the second half of that sentence, which says with due deference, as though he was not unlawfully removed. And he was not unlawfully removed at all. Now, the DOJ has really botched this case, I think, but the framing here is also dishonest. Who your lawyers admitted in federal court was wrongfully seized, that's not what they admitted, and deported to a prison in El Salvador. You conceded in that interview that you have not asked Bukele to return him. You also said regarding this case that you don't make that decision because your lawyers do. Now, your comments demonstrate your failure to comply with the court orders. No, they don't. And you continue to violate his due process rights. No, he doesn't. First of all, he's an illegal, and his constitutional rights are minimal compared to a citizen. He's also someone who's been identified under the Alien Enemies Act and had due process with that finding. So anytime that they ask you, well, he deserves due process for what? To determine what? To do what? To determine if he's removable? That was already done. Judge already found that. To make a judicial finding whether he's MS-13, judge already found that. He appealed that, lost that. So that's already done too. To determine what? Is he a citizen? No, already got that. Habeas petition, they didn't file that when he was being deported at the outset because they thought he was going to Guatemala or someplace else. Once he landed in El Salvador, then they flipped out, filed their petition in Maryland. So he got plenty of due process rights, right? Plenty of them. When you deny due process rights of one person, you threaten them for everyone. Well, it's a good thing he hasn't done that because that would be a problem. The American public knows this. Recent polling shows a majority of Americans reject your trampling. Okay, here, during my visit to El Salvador, the margarita lover says, I had the opportunity to meet with the vice president down there called Oloa, saying my conversation with him revealed the extent to which you and your administration are violating the courts. Our discussion showed that your administration is doing nothing to comply with their return. He's not our citizen, dude, or to facilitate his return. It's saying the government of El Salvador is holding him solely at your request, specifically because you're paying them. Well, he's an El Salvadorian, so I'm not sure if let's see if he gets to the into that nuance. Let's see what he says. While I expected a private meeting with the vice president, when I arrived at his office, there were several cameras rolling to record our conversation. Good, because you're a liar. And I agreed to have our conversation on the record, and I want to report some important details. Good. I hope they release the full video of this conversation. Here's what the conversation says. Aloa told me, he says, El Salvador is not able to take any action regarding these because the case is in the U.S., and usually we do not express any opinion on domestic affairs. That's fair. That's right. They sued in Maryland, calling it a constitutional crisis and all those things. They're having their own little problem. Like, this is the point. They're having their own little conversation about a foreign citizen in another country. He's like, they can say whatever they want. He went on to say this. I mean, the ball's in your court. The ball is in your court is a phrase he used multiple times. He made clear that once the case will be resolved definitely, and there will be a clear instruction regarding the case. Says El Salvador's government will apply with our principles, and of course will act accordingly. He said, at this current moment, we cannot take any actions because the case is still in the United States situation. He reinforced this point throughout our conversation, saying, the bottom line is this is an issue that has to be solved in the U.S. We have not expressed and cannot express any opinion in the case. It's up to you. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's your problem. And Judge Zenas is going to have a real hard time forcing a foreign government to do anything. All of this makes crystal clear that even though your administration's lawyers admitted in federal court that he was wrongfully detained, it's not what they admitted, in Maryland and sent to a prison in El Salvador, and despite the Supreme Court's order to facilitate his return, you have not lifted a finger to comply with this order. He said, the ball's in your court. When I asked the vice president whether El Salvador had any evidence that he committed a crime, his response was, how can I have it? He said the government of El Salvador does not qualify those persons who are here. We just take them. I said, is El Salvador imprisoning Abrego simply because the United States is paying them? He said, yeah, exactly. We're getting paid for Abrego. He also said, I mean, if the person that you send is not a criminal, is not whatever, I mean, it's up to you. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to express any opinion. It's up to you. The ball's in your court. He made it clear. They did not review the file of Abrego. Maybe he didn't. He said, we have a deal with the U.S. government. They send the people, we host them, they pay. That's it. When I asked the VP why they cannot release Abrego Garcia from prison when the U.S. government court said that they were wrongfully abducted, he said, what is your recommendation to El Salvador's government? We can take him to the airport, ask an airline to take him back to America? That's right. Are you saying the airline would take a person without a passport? What kind of visa should he carry? All true. He's not a citizen. He's an El Salvadorian. Further, they said, Bukele said, we cannot smuggle a person to the United States. If we send a person without a visa, tourist visa, working visa, student visa, what kind of reason can we get legally in the U.S.? He said, who will provide that? We don't have that. I repeatedly pointed out that neither I nor anyone else was asking El Salvador to smuggle them in. Yes, you are. He says that argument's a red herring. No, it's not. He has no lawful status here. I repeatedly pointed out what Bondi said when Bukele was in the Oval Office with you, that the U.S. would send a plane. I know, Pam. She should just stop talking about this case, to be honest with you. Just like, don't talk about it. Just defer it to Stephen Miller or me. That the U.S. would send a plane to pick up Abrego. So I was not asking the government to smuggle him in. Thanks, Pam, for that stupid line. Your administration illegally took Abrego to El Salvador. No, they did not. Read the order. It says Guatemala in a plane, and the Attorney General Bondi had said the United States could send a plane to pick him up. And the government can certainly provide the papers for his return. No, we're not giving it to him. The conversation with Aloa clearly demonstrates that El Salvador has no independent legal basis for imprisoning Abrego. As they readily concede, only reason for keeping him there is the agreement with the U.S. He's their citizen. This also reveals that your administration could facilitate his release. My conversation with Aloa, it goes against your claims that they're sovereign and you can't control them. You say I can't control them. They say we're under your control. You could cancel the contract, right? They want the judges and Congress to cancel the contract so that they can bring him back. They say it's outrageous that his family has been forced to suffer and lie to all of us. You should fix this. It's also shameful, blah, blah, blah. It's also dangerous to suggest we can't fight gang violence, so let the gangbangers in here. And he's quoting some other judges. He says, this case is not about Kilmar. It's about everyone in America. While he's at the center of this case, it's about due process rights, whatever. So gangbang lover Chris Van Hollen, wild letter on that they're just doubling down on this dude who had as plenty of process We've covered it here. And if you want to go to the lodge, you can check it out at watcherlodge.com. We've got a whole research file here. Here's the Kilmar Abrego file. And we've got all the FAQs on why he was properly deported. You can see the opinion that accompanied the order of withholding of removal, specifically says Guatemala. It's not a typo. A lot of morons out there will say it's a typo or it's a scrivener's error or whatever. In an immigration case where the entire analysis is contingent upon the location of the family, which is in Guatemala at the time. So he was lawfully removed to El Salvador. The judge corrected other mistakes in other locations, but he was properly removed. So Pam and the DOJ have botched this case from the beginning. They allowed the poison pill from Iraz Ruvini to sour the case, and they've done nothing to rebut that. But the fact is, this dude is where he belongs. He's an El Salvadorian citizen, and he deserves to be out of our country, not here, beating American citizens in Maryland. So here's what C-SPAN said about this, commenting on rule of law, saying, you people are going to lecture us about rule of law after our country got invaded?
I think I'll make a comment after that one. Mr. Kennedy made a very interesting comment about choosing people over politics. You know, it's really about the people you choose. Me, I'd choose Laken Riley over the Tren de Agua criminal who in Tennessee was stopped with 8 girls, and they called, put him in ICE. And the Biden guy said, let him go. Yet y'all want to go down to El Salvador and praise this guy.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'll choose Laken Riley, and that's people over people, certain people. But you guys don't know a good guy from a bad guy. Y'all want to street criminals and defund ICE. That's been the mantra since I've been up here.
Yep.
You want to befriend Iran, but punch Saudi Arabia in the face. Meanwhile, the whole Middle East gets destabilized. And what happens? A war. Hamas gets invaded. Oh, let's just run away from Afghanistan. Right then, Mr. Putin says, I'm invading Ukraine. My goodness. Talk about us. It's ridiculous. Rule of law? Give me a break.
Totally.
13 million people poured into this country because you totally disregarded the rule of law. Laws passed by this body. I think it's laughable myself, but I've tried very hard to control it. And I think we have. Maybe somebody kicked their feet up. Rule of law. Give me a break. I yield. Anybody else want to make a comment?
No, I think you pretty much nailed it, Mr. Green. It is a joke. The Democrats will lecture all of us about their care and concern for due process of law only when it serves their political ends. For the rest of us, as long as we continue to lose, our country continues to be exploited and abused, they're fine with that if it keeps them winning elections. But fortunately, they don't control much right now. And so they're grasping, like that final scene from Terminator 2, where the T-1000 is shape-shifting into a million different things to try to survive. That's where they're at, like hydrogen peroxide on a cut. We will continue to return law and order to the rule of law, and we're going to clean out our country. All right, so my friends, we got one more quick update on the day. Amy Berman Jackson, rather, is what we're talking about. I get the letters a little bit discombobulated. So we got one final story on the day, a little bit of a shorter one, but it was a fun dissent. So let's take a look at this one here. A scathing dissent coming after an Obama judge. You remember her, Amy Berman Jackson. She was the judge presiding over this case. National Treasury Union, Russell Vought, is being sued by the Treasury Union. He runs the employees, right, Office of Management and Budget. And this union is suing Russell Vought. And what happened was Amy Berman Jackson came back down and issued this order from the District of Columbia and said, you can't fire anybody. Remember, we've seen all of these lawsuits about firing people. And a while back, Amy, in middle of April, Amy Berman Jackson issued this order saying to the Trump administration, you can't fire anybody, okay? The reduction in force that was announced by Director Vought is suspended. Okay, you can't fire these people, so hire them back. And it may not be implemented or effectuated or completed in any way. The defendants are prohibited from discontinuing any employee's access to the work systems, including email and internal platforms, until the plaintiffs have ruled, until the court has ruled on the plaintiff's motion. So, signed by Amy Berman Jackson. Trump obviously appealed that, says, look, I'm the president. I want to fire people. I can fire people. These are lawfully appointed secretaries of the various positions, and they have the power, empowered by the American people and approved and affirmed by the Senate, to make these decisions. But what happened is the Court of Appeals from the District of Columbia came back down, and they found in favor of the lower level judge. But the dissent, which is actually the much better analysis here, is blasting the judge. We're going to come back on that. But here's a short order saying that Amy Berman Jackson can now be the president and stop Trump from firing people in his executive branch. Writing, upon consideration of the emergency motion, here's what they rule. It is ordered that the emergency motion be granted in part, saying Trump seeks clarification on this. Who can I fire and how? That term was not clearly defined. So we're going to define it now. A particularized assessment involves a determination conducted by a decision maker from the RIF with a declaration and more. And so we're also on our own ordering that this court's stay order be modified to lift the partial stay of this paragraph. So some things are changing, some things are staying. But our partial stay order determined and permitted them to conduct a RIF of certain employees whom the defendants have determined after a particularized assessment to be unnecessary for the performance of their duties. Now, they vigorously dispute this. Okay, who's necessary? Who's unnecessary, and all the things. Trump says any such judicial review, if you get to decide for us, you get to review what's necessary. Like, we think it's necessary to fire them. If you say it's not, then that means you're in charge of the agency, essentially. In response, they highlight that the proposed RIF involving 90% exceeds the scope. And given these ongoing disputes, we think it's best to restore this other paragraph to make sure that those other people are not being fired. So, reinforcing this conclusion, we've accommodated this. We've got oral arguments coming up in 3 weeks. At that time, we'll talk about separation of powers and more. But right now, these people cannot be fired at the moment, right? Now, here, you can read through this, and we'll do it right now. But this is the dissent, which is much better in its analysis. They say, all right, listen. The panel today bars the political leadership of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau from reducing its workforce in accordance with Trump's directives. Now, because this injunction was entered by Amy Berman, because it raises serious separation of powers concerns and has paved the way for ongoing judicial supervision of the executive branch, I would continue the stay pending the appeal. So she can't stop people from firing these employees, right? She is literally usurping Trump's power to stop him from making these changes. At the end of March, Amy entered a preliminary injunction stopping the CFBP from carrying out any reductions in force, freezing them under the previous administration's team. Now, the government sought a stay of the injunction. We granted that stay in substantial part, and it permitted the RIFs in conjunction with the law, so Trump could fire people. We expedited consideration of this and more. Now, the enjoined parties are the acting director and the political leadership of the government, appointed by the president, right? Trump appointed these people to do the job. With the injunction largely stayed, their leadership issued RIF notices to more than 80% of the workforce. That's a lot, right? So they're just cutting people. In a statement filed below, the agency's chief legal officer detailed the particularized assessment underlying the RIF and said the employees retained were sufficient. Okay, we're not closing the agency. We're getting rid of 80% of people. We only need the remaining 20% to actually do the job. Everything is in compliance with the law. He further clarified that the employees subject to the RIF would remain employed for 60 days. We would continually assess this. We'd make changes when necessary. But rather than wait to see if any harm materialized, the people suing here returned to the district court the same day that the RIF notices were issued. Okay, so they say, okay, you can fire these people. Trump does it. They say, what? This is unfathomable that you could continue to provide these required services if the RIFs were executed. Okay, so Trump says, hey, we can fire 80% of you and just get the job done with 20. They say, that's ridiculous. There's no way you can do that. It's unfathomable. But they didn't allege there was any specific harm or any loss of service. They just said, no way, like 80? That's crazy. Nor could they, since the employees subject to the RIF had not even stopped working yet or been terminated, right? So they got notice. So there was no harm. People are still working. They sued. Without any finding of particularized harm, the district court stopped the RIF again. Although the district court styled this as a TRO, the label doesn't matter. They like to mislabel everything. I would construe, says this dissenting judge, the district court's order prohibiting the RIF as a modification of the injunction. And if the district court abused its discretion, then we have to vacate it. And in my view, here we go. Amy Berman Jackson, in her modification of the injunction, is inconsistent with the terms of the Court of Appeals, and therefore this is an abuse of discretion. Busted. The April 11th stay did not create a pre-clearance regime. We didn't tell you you could do this, Amy, where they must obtain judicial approval for its management decisions. We have to come talk to you about this. Unfortunately, that's exactly what's happening here. Amy has blocked a RIF while it determines by its own lights whether their staffing plans will be sufficient to fulfill the statutes. Okay. She's in charge of the agency now. Well, that's true. You can't fire that many people. We don't need that many people. We need a lot more than that. So you're not in charge. You don't run it. You don't know what's happening in the agency. The district court's approach turns the separation of powers on its head. The execution of the laws, including the management of agencies, is committed to the executive branch under the president. It's in the Constitution. It's the take care clause requiring that the president take care that the laws be faithfully executed. And when the agency action is challenged, courts have an essential obligation to say what the law is. Whatever the merits of this underlying lawsuit, the district court cannot erase the boundaries between the courts and the executive by setting up a temporary receivership of the branch, right? Now, the court is in control of that agency. As the Supreme Court has admonished, it's not the role of the courts, but that of the political branches to shape the institutions. Courts don't run things. We do. While the April 11th stay left some parts of the injunction in place based on the government's concessions, it didn't authorize Amy Berman Jackson to inject herself into the day-to-day management. And so I would vacate her modification. Now, to the extent the stay was unclear, I would also clarify that Trump's actions, if they cause someone to lose services that are required by the law, then they can issue the relief. Like once the harm comes, then you can sue. But in the alternative, if a partial stay is truly unworkable, I would put an end to these cat and mouse games and stay the preliminary injunction entirely. Absolutely right. Saying, Judge Amy overstepped our stay, violated our order. Rather than remedy this error, today's order hamstrings the executive and prevents the CFPP from downsizing until the merits of the appeal are resolved. The lack of judicially manageable standards in this posture is a reason to leave the execution of the laws to the executive, not to the courts. And so I respectfully dissent. So Amy Berman Jackson kind of wins the day on that one. Of course, we'll see what comes next from Trump, whether they take this up to the Supreme Court remains to be seen. But it's another case of another Democrat judge appointed by the Democrats to do the Democrat bidding is now acting like she's in charge of the entire agency. The dissent, of course, is the right analysis. Hopefully the Supreme Court steps in sooner rather than later to stop this madness. We'll be here continuing to cover it. Thank you for joining us as we do. All right, my friends. Well, it has been a heck of a stream, and thanks for joining us a little bit early today. Reminder, we're back tomorrow, regular time tomorrow. There will not be a Membo stream in the morning, but we'll be back at the regular time, and we'll see you then. But my friends, what a beautiful Wednesday it has been. If you're just joining us, quick recap. We spent a good portion of the morning, about 90 minutes, covering all of the cabinet meeting, first 100 days cabinet meeting. I thought it was excellent. And we got to hear from everybody. Everybody was there and they all delivered. So great stuff there. Then we transitioned. We talked about Judge Dugan, the judge from Wisconsin, charged with 2 crimes, a felony and a misdemeanor, one for obstruction, one for concealment, and how she has been suspended there now with pay temporarily in Wisconsin while the charges are pending. We also saw that the individual that she was trying to escape out of her courtroom is this dude, and his name is Eduardo Flores Ruiz. He, of course, got charged with other crimes that we covered here, 3 different battery charges, domestic abuse for beating the hell out of everybody because he wanted to play his tunes a little loud. And we went through that. Now, meanwhile, Dugan is hiring what they call the LeBron James of lawyers, former Bush Solicitor General, who is going to be joining the team, and she's got a bunch of other people coming out. So she's going to dig her heels in, throw her weight around, and we're going to see a defense. So might be a fun case to cover. We'll see what comes down. Listen to a bunch of the liberals scream and shout about this and reveal their double standards yet again before we heard Tom Homan and Ashley Moody explain no one's above the law in America. Then we talked about Kilmar and how the ex-baby daddy says that he's a gang member. His tattoo says he's a gang member. His human trafficking says he's a gang member. He beats his wife. He was here illegally. Immigration judge said he was a gang member. An immigration court of appeals said he was a gang member. And I think there's probably more that we're missing. So we covered that case. Now we've got more evidence and more indicia. But meanwhile, we've got Senator Chris Van Hollen, who's scolding Trump, saying, bring this dude back and more. And we've talked about this many times. Our rejected opinion, our opinion is that the actual order says Guatemala. Many people reject that, say we're maniacs here, but you can just read it, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But C-SPAN also clipped this one, Mark Green dunking on the left. Like, why are they fighting for these illegals? Is it because it's their whole constituency? Probably happening. So some good stuff there, of course. Then we talked about another update here with the National Treasury Employees Union and Amy Berman Jackson as well. So some good stuff in the House. And we're happy to see you here. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for being a part of the show and for being here and for sending in these amazing donos and more. So let's see who's joining us. All right, we got some great comments. Yeah, I think Guatemala is a common typo for El Salvador. And if you actually just read through the opinion, I think it's pretty dang self-explanatory. It's not too complicated because the family was in Guatemala. He was a member of the immediate Kilmar family, which was the protected class. So he's got to go where they go. If they're in Guatemala, then he's there. Hey, what's up? Voice of the People's here. Says the redirect worked today. Thank you to all. Sorry we had to have an impromptu therapy session for Davey, but that's the show. Nothing is scripted. Everything is organic, and we squirrel out hard sometimes. So sounds like you had a great stream last night. Therapy's good, especially on a live stream. You got to work it out. Get it out. Don't let it just sit in there, work it out. Glad it worked, Voice of the People. And glad you had a good stream. Shout out to Davey. Hopefully he's doing good today. What's up, Mark Shaw? Rob, evil never sleeps. That's why you belong at the DOJ. Thank you for your hard work and keep it up. Thank you, Mark Shaw, for saying that. Yeah, I mean, I could never envision myself as a prosecutor working for the DOJ, but if I'm called to serve, you have to serve. What's going on? Thank you, Mark Shaw, for the endorsement. It says, plus, if you go to the DOJ, you might get to meet Alina Abba in the House. Well, she's in a happily married relationship, and I'm in a happy relationship as well. Not married, but not yet. But you see, it's a good point. Yeah, it'd be an interesting experience, no doubt. Thank you, Mark. What's up? Alex is here. Alex, Davey Duke. Hi, Robert. What about multi-generational Amish family farmer and Amos Miller? Where is the USDA roll-ins on those? Where is Trump? Stop the attacks on organic raw milk, etc. I haven't seen much on that. You're right. I mean, I know that Robert Barnes, I think, has represented them and been at the forefront of that case. I think he's kind of the authority on the latest on that. But yeah, and I'm not sure, would RFK Jr. be in on that, right? Could he maybe say, hey, this stuff is not as bad as they say it is. Stop harassing these people for wanting to eat milk that they think is good for them. I don't know, Alex. It's a good question. I think Robert Barnes probably has the latest over there. What's going on? We got Beezy in the house. Thank you, Beezy. Says, hey, go Pam. That woman loves a good update. That's her job. From Beezy. Go Pam. Yeah, Pam's updates are pretty interesting. She loves the numbers and a lot of energy and enthusiasm and very performative. Good to see you, Beezy. Thanks for the dono. Hey, what's up, DJ Roach? Hey, it says the tat says we the people. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but if it does, that's pretty cool. I saw it. I just didn't see what it says. That was on Brooke Rollins. What's up, DJ Roach? Thanks for being here for 12 months, 1 full year. Great to have you. Very nice to have you. What's going on, Doan? What's up, Doan? That AI thing is big. China had our booties. Yeah, and I think that China still is, neck and neck. I think that DeepSeek really freaked everyone out when that got dropped because it didn't need the same bandwidth processing stuff. Yeah, good to see you, Doan. Hey, Baby Sealed is here. Baby Sealed, thank you for bringing in 50 new membos. I don't have all the names there, but my friends, you know who you are. And welcome aboard to 50 new friends who came in and got gifted membos courtesy of Baby Sealed. Baby Sealed, thank you for doing that. And I think you brought in another 20. Baby Sealed. So new membos, when we're back on our membo streams, which will be back on Friday, we'll see you there on the membo streams. Great to see you, Baby Seal. Thanks for bringing them in and all new friends. We're really glad that you're here. Thanks for joining up. Ollie, what's up, Ollie? One more membo coming in, courtesy of Ollie. Welcome aboard. You know who you are. Thank you, Ollie, for doing that. Hey, Voice of the People says, since Rob has taken the night off, Rick Donner will be joining me for the Oversight Committee hearing about drones over bases on Off-Label Podcast, 8 p.m. tonight with Voice of the People. So be sure to check that out. What's up? Resin Waves by Veronica. 14 months as a member. Thank you, Resin Waves. Says the lawfare never stops. Warrants? Yeah, it depends on who the warrants are for. I think, Liz Cheney would be a good one to start with. What's going on? This one is from George Garbanzo. What's up, George? Says, sometimes I think that the administration allows certain things leaked to the media to distract them from the real work going on. I think there's truth to that. Like, it's a flood the zone strategy. They do a lot of things rapidly and the media can't keep track. We saw a lot of this in the first basically month. Remember, they'd plan like a whole opposition protest, and by the time they set up their little signs, there was another issue going on, so they just could not keep up. So I think it's actually a bona fide strategy. Thank you, George. Leonard, what's up, Leonard? Says Rubio is pure class. Rubio's really shining. They all are, man. They've all just kind of come into their positions and really delivered. Thank you, Leonard, for the dono. Rags Dirt, what's up, Rags Dirt? Thanks for becoming a new member. We'll see you back here on the Friday and the Saturday members only streams. What's up, Leonard? Leonard says, Brandon is the chief ripper offer. Yeah. He did a lot of it. And there were a lot of people under him that were subordinate ripper offers. And they ripped off a lot. It was brutal. Ollie, hey, here's a question. Where were the 200 plus DHS agents investigating riots on January 6th? Court filings? Do we have this evidence? No, not really. In the Proud Boys trial, we did have some evidence. I think they said in the Proud Boys trial that there were 8 CHSs or FBI affiliated people in the Proud Boys trial, more than there were criminal defendants, more FBI folks than criminal defendants. That came out in testimony and I think in filings. But other than that, no. I mean, we'd love to know how many. There was that report, like there were 23 CHSs from the FBI. Nobody believes that because they all came from HSI. It was a separate agency that nobody wanted to talk about. Hey, Salt and Light, the province of Alberta is seceding from Canada. Wow. That sounds like a good idea, because why would you want to live in a dictatorship with a double-downed Justin Trudeau? Horrible. Kevin Duncan, what's up, Kevin? Thank you for becoming a member. Great to see you. Appreciate that. Kevin Duncan in the house. Larry says, every time I go to jury duty, someone always says I'm prejudiced. I don't like black people and I hate cops. Just to get out of jury duty, it's a bunch of BS. Somebody says that. I had that happen to me in a trial. Yeah. I had one lady stand up right before we picked the jury, and she said, Your Honor, I just have one thing I need to say before we get seated. I hate cops. I was like, you couldn't have been on my jury. You couldn't have waited 5 seconds and said that, just thought that in your head. Great. Anyways, Philip, she got kicked out. Oh, bye. I'm like, ugh. Philip B, do judges read that report before the hearing? Yeah, she should have. Yeah, I mean, that judge should have. It's part of the file. She should know what the charges are, why he's there, probable cause statement. She should have, it should be in the file, yeah. Like why the prosecution believes they can bring charges. So, yeah, hey, justice isn't blind. It depends on party. Yeah, right. But they pretend that it is blind and that they're honorable people that don't have any political biases or any partisan bones in their bodies. We know that's not true. Floofy Cat, what's up, Floofy Cat? Good to see you, Floofy Cat. Thanks for becoming a membo. We'll see you tomorrow, Friday on the membos only stream. See you back then. What's up, Mark? Mark Shaw. Henceforth, we should all refer to Hannah Dugan as Backdoor Dugan. Oh, gosh, that's a bad visual. Yeah, I was calling her Duncan Dugan because she's giant, but that's also Backdoor Dugan is pretty brutal. Yeah, that's pretty visual, isn't it? What's up, Ollie? Virginia Gouffre died 5 days ago in the Epstein trial. We talked about that, Ollie. Yeah, we did a video on that. And her lawyer then said that there may be some funny business going on there, which I think we covered that on a member stream, actually. What's up, Ollie? Thanks for bringing in another membo. You're amazing. Hey, Mark Smith. What's up, Mark? Mark came in over from South Africa. Says, hey, place yourself in Dugan's lawyer's shoes. What other defense can they have other than throwing Ruiz under the bus? He groped me and ran away. Yeah, no, I was just showing him where the bathroom was. And then he fled. I was going to give him a mint back in chambers. I had to talk to the judge. I had to talk to the defense attorney about something, right? I wonder what their excuse is. Because we read that complaint, and it's pretty dang obvious what she did. Hey, Mark Shaw says, without a valid marriage certificate, Jennifer is also the alleged wife. Yeah, I want them to prove all their documents, right? Look, if the judge's order, the 10-19 order from Judge David Jones, if he meant El Salvador, then there should be an amendment, an addendum, there should be a correction, right? How can an immigration judge just say Guatemala in multiple places and then just not fix the mistake and not have any other order updating that? And we should just take the ACLU's lawyer's word for it that there is? I haven't seen it. Hey, what's up, Mr. Magic Man? I suppose next they will say you can't arrest AGs for mortgage fraud. Yeah, probably. Oh, yeah. When Tish gets charged, oh, they're going to have a meltdown. She came after him, tried to steal $500 million from him, and now he's targeting her. They're going to lose it. It's going to be the same thing. Judge Dugan, nobody even knows her, and they're already coming to her defense. Tish is like their hero. It's like they've got shrines with Tish's booty flopping in the wind. What's going on, Doan? Hey, Mr. Magic Man, I suppose next they will say you can't arrest AGs for mortgage fraud. Got that one, Mr. Magic Man. Good one. Doan, hey, thanks for running log, Rob. Digging the show. Well, we're traveling today. Yeah. So I know I hate kind of getting off schedule here, but I got a nice event I'm going to tonight. Going to drive right down, hit the event, drive right back up the next morning, and then we'll be back on track. But I do miss the Membo streams, and I know kind of wonks some people sometimes, but thanks for hanging out with us, Doan. Glad we got to spend this time together today. Scott, what's up, Scott? Scott Demidovich in the house. Thank you, Scott, for being a membo. We'll see you back here on the next membo stream. Hey, Jason, Clean Safe Energy is here. Love your show. Don't get enough live, but love it. Thank you, Jason, for saying that, man. Glad you're able to join us live on this little bit of an adjusted schedule on the day. Hope your week is amazing, and you're out there delivering clean, safe energy. We love it. Acid Burn, what's up? Freedom for all. That's what we're working for, baby. That's right. Acid Burn, that's what we want. Mark Nielsen says the ACLJ filed with SCOTUS injunction, a case representing West Virginia. Okay, flag that one for sure. Mark Nielsen, thanks for flagging that one. ACLJ, we've covered some good stuff there. And we got this one, Bruce Rice baby. Dun, 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 dun. Thank you, Bruce. Bringing in 50 new membo friends. Man, amazing. So I don't think I see any of these people that I can call out. I got some of them. Yeah, Bruce Rice brought in Heartbreaker, Trevor Smith. We got Watch This with Rob. Thanks for that. Yo, what's up? Uncle Mitch, Wade, Cola Buds, Robert, Kitty Lowe. We got 50 new membos coming in, courtesy of Bruce Rice baby. You guys know who you are. What's up, Glenn McClure? Dave McCauley, Genius by Birth is here. That's nice. Connie's here. Bill G. Tons of gifted membos. Thank you for that, Bruce Rice. Rice baby in the house. 50 new membos on the day. Amazing. Thank you, YouTube friends, for sending those in. Let's say hello to our friends on the locals tubes and see who's joining us over here on the locals. Here's what Bonnie said on locals. You can join up on locals, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Come check it out. We also got this from Bonnie. Says withholding federal funding is how they got all the states to lower the speed limit to 55 in all states. Exactly. It's the power of the purse, right? You can't force the states to do anything. Just say, well, we're just going to take all your money in taxes and we won't give it back to you unless you do this thing. And of course, the states do the thing. And they force a lot of compliance. I think the drinking age was also that too, from Bonnie. I think the drinking age was also there. Milo Phone Bill says, will the Dems go crazy seeing Elon in the president's cabinet meeting? Answer with the question, did Biden even have a cabinet meeting? Well, I don't think so. Nothing functional at all. Anyways, yeah, nothing functional. So will the Dems go crazy? I think Elon's already been in there multiple times and they've gone crazy. So answer yes. Milo Phone Bill. I'm sure glad RFK Jr. is talking about food that makes you obese and diabetic. He gets it. Yeah, I think that's a big problem, right? These are common threads that impact everybody. And we're talking about the big issues now. It's not about, well, these are the big issues. Yeah, Tobo. It's a great thing that so many people have quit believing the corporate media. This cabinet meeting shows just how wrong they are. Yeah, it's been negative coverage. This week has been brutal. Every single headline has just been an attack. It's been brutal. Chubby says, I think it'd be good for this administration to announce numbers of new citizens, people whom went through the process correctly alongside the deportation numbers, a little dose of double positivity from Chubby. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So like you're deporting, or like how many new babies, like how many new American-born babies are here to American citizens? Like that'd be a good number. They want this kid thing. So like incentivize childbirth, almost like the scoreboard, right? Where in COVID, they used to have like the death count scoreboard versus the jab scoreboard. So you got the deportees and you got the new American births. What's up, Chubby? I like it. Rub some dirt on it. You know what they need in there is new media press representative Robert Govea asking questions. What's the question you ask, Rob, and who do you ask? I think you got to go to President Trump if you're in the room. And so you say, Mr. President, you have to like lather it on pretty thick. You've accomplished so much. January 6th pardons have been amazing, and the country is reeling from that horrific attack on us. But the question the American people have for you, Mr. President, is can you give us an update on the status of accountability for those who prosecuted this hoax against us, most specifically people like Liz Cheney and Adam Schiff, and whether you've identified any other avenues of accountability for them, the people who got the pardon from Biden, Mr. President? And then, of course, you give him just carte blanche to rip on all of them. And I would just sit there like this. Thank you, sir. Yes, this is great. Poppy D. Public Square is a great alternative to Amazon for online public shopping. The founder and the vendors share our values. I think I've heard of them. Yeah, I think I saw him do a podcast, maybe with Viva. Chubby. I don't know. I feel like the meeting could have just been a few emails instead. That's every meeting. Yeah, that's every meeting. Could have been a couple of emails. Just text message group. You good? You good? Good. On track. It was good. But it was fun to watch. This old guy. It's the supremacy clause, stupid. They're having a hard time with that. And separation of powers. Difficult concepts for them. Hey, this old guy says, wouldn't it be great to be a Democrat and know that laws are optional and the whole world is sugar candy and puppy dogs? Right. It's amazing. And apparently, like they have like no problems in their lives that they can care about all this stupid stuff that nobody cares about. It's like, that's amazing. Like, how much money do you have that you can go get a job doing like pronoun ideology studies? Like, how much money does your father give you, honestly? That you don't have to actually go do something functional and real with your life, that you can just sit here and explore platitudes and victimization throughout society. It's like, what? Where's all this coming from? Like, everything is so perfect in your life that you have to find these other things to complain about that aren't even problems. It's wild. It's like, what a world that is. You have to manufacture your own stress because everything is so good. It's wild. Sharpie guy, I had a response to your YouTube video a couple days ago about buying crap from China, and it is buy it nice or buy it twice. Dumbo crap mothers, especially Van Hollen's, must have been consuming drugs when they were pregnant, maybe. The guy's IQ is barely above room temperature. Well, they're also CIA. So when you think somebody's just really stupid, the other idea is that they could just be CIA. And they're just playing a role, right? And the CIA does a bunch of things that would be counterintuitive because they've got other plans in play. So, yeah, his mom was CIA, his dad was State Department. Who knows what his relationship is? But Van Hollen, I think there's something else going on. He's not in love with Kilmar. He's probably in love with MS-13 and their relationship. What's up, this old guy? Hey, Rob, you may have crammed too much into your day. Safe travels today. Hope the Tesla didn't leave already. I know. It's like I was planning on getting out of here a little bit earlier, and then Trump decided he was going to talk for 90 minutes and explain how amazing everything's going. So you got to stick with it, baby. No, it's all good. My event's not till later tonight. So Sharp, thank you for asking, though, this old guy. We'll make it on time. The Sharpie guy, stop by Mama G's. We are. That's where I'm staying. Get the pasties recipe, Rob, and share it with us. She's coming up here for Mother's Day. We're going to make meatballs. So that recipe is certainly coming, and we're going to video it. So you might be able to ask her yourself, Sharpie guy. Jax North says, Judge Dugan says it is not civil disobedience. It is a constitutional crisis, as it is the judicial branch defying an executive branch order. Yeah, it's committing a crime, right, in her own courthouse, and calling herself a hero in the aftermath. Or I guess everybody else is calling her a hero, not necessarily her. So locals, thank you for that. Locals, of course, stick around. We're coming back over there for a little bit. Mock Schnell brought in 20 more membos. Mock Schnell, you're amazing. Thanks for bringing in new friends. We got a bunch of them coming in. Emma, John, we got Snowbird, Fred Murphy, Kay Drummond, and a bunch of people coming in, courtesy of our friend Mock Schnell with 20 membos gifted. Amazing. Thank you, Mock Schnell, for doing that. Friends, welcome aboard, new membos. We will not do a membo stream tomorrow, but we will be back on Friday to get into it again. Of course, then the members only stream on Saturday. So we're glad that you're joining us. Now, we are going to leave it there on the day. We're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We're going to hang out, debrief for a little bit, and hang out. If you'd like to join us over there, we'd love to see you. But if not, we will be back tomorrow. I had to think what time tomorrow. Same time as normal. So 3 p.m. Arizona Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. We're doing one stream tomorrow because I'll be driving back up here, and we'll see what the day has in store for us. Before we wrap it up on the day, we always want to thank our mods and meme smiths, K Bean, Donut Mind Me, Carrie B, Playin' Hooky, Dog Digger, Janek, Just Rhonda, Elliot, and Geegum Geegum, helping to keep this thing nice and beautiful, my friends. Thanks again for joining us early. Thanks for hanging out with us through the 100-day cabinet meeting. It's been a lot of fun. But we'll pause there for the day. Of course, we're coming back tomorrow. Same place, same time as usual. We cannot wait to get into it then. And so until then, I hope you're out there making it a beautiful week, taking it all in stride, knowing it's all downhill from here. We'll come back tomorrow to get into it again. In order to do that appropriately, well, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful day and an amazing week, my friends. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.